I want to welcome to the August 4th, 2015 Lawrence City Commission meeting.
Convinced my wife she had a... You guys ready? Yeah. Good evening and welcome to the weekly Lawrence City Commission meeting. I hope everybody enjoys the springtime temperatures that I hear that are going to come for the next few days. Enjoy them. I think changes will probably happen real soon again. So anyway, first item on the agenda is our recognitions, and tonight we have a presentation, and it's from Read Across Lawrence. So, Brad.
You know, I've never signed in on this thing before. Should I sign on as I never do? Okay. I've never done that before, and let me do that officially finally. Hey.
Sure you get the right address. I know where you live.
That's me. All right. Hi, I'm Brad Allen. I'm the Executive Director of Lawrence Public Library. Thanks so much for having us on the agenda tonight. We've brought copies of our Read Across Lawrence book for commissioners, and actually anybody who's here tonight who would like a copy of the book, we have some extra copies.
Thank you, man.
Actually, I'll tell you about the book, and then you can decide. And we've got some, you can raise your hand, and we'll hand them out. So just wanted to tell you a little bit about Read Across Lawrence and give you a little teaser and hopefully get folks excited about Read Across Lawrence 2016. Read Across Lawrence, this is an annual event we've been doing since 2001. And we see this as a great opportunity as part of a nationwide movement to have community-wide reading programs. We've been doing this for some time, and this year we're really excited about our selection, which is Andy Weir's The Martian. The selection committee that is comprised of both staff from Lawrence Public Library and KU Libraries, a valuable partner for us on this, picked The Martian for a few different reasons. First, the book had a lot of resonance with a lot of people as it came out and was really starting to build. People really liked it and thought that it would be a great book for discussion for a lot of different reasons. And then as we were deciding, the movie also came out, and that's also, I think, a good time to get people interested too. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie with Matt Damon, the story centers on an astronaut stranded on Mars and his struggle for survival as people on Earth scramble to try to rescue him. We loved that it was this archetypal story of survival against long odds. We loved the ingenuity of the main character growing potatoes, the lowly botanist who is stranded and uses his botany skills to survive. We loved all of these elements of science that are in the book that are introduced and explained by the author. We thought this was a good foray into sci-fi that crosses over really well for people who don't read widely in that genre. And it also speaks to men a little bit more than books we've picked in the past to try to diversify our readership. As we have a predominance of women who usually participate in Read Across Lawrence. So in addition to this book, we also want to tell you about some events that are happening. I wanted to invite the commission and the public to our kickoff on Thursday at 7 p.m., where we'll learn about the science of science fiction with KU professors James Gunn and Chris McKittrick. And also, I don't know what he's going to do, but an experimental particle physicist, Philip Behringer, will be there as well. So that will be exciting. Another really large event that we'll have going on is kind of the final capstone is on February 25th at Liberty Hall. Our very own astronaut Steve Hawley, along with John Grunsfeld, he has a very long title, but he's basically the main Mars guy at NASA, will be coming. He and Steve Hawley will be in conversation with former ABC NASA correspondent Lynn Scher. And lastly, also, I wanted to turn this over to Karen Allen, our youth services coordinators. We've recently also expanded Read Across Lawrence, not just for adults, but for teens and kids too. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about those books.
Hi, I'm Karen Allen. I'm the Youth Services Coordinator at Lawrence Public Library. And as Brad said, we've had a kids and teen option for Read Across Lawrence the last couple of years. Last year was the first year for teens, and we've had 3 or 4 for children. So the teens book this year is These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. Some have said this is sort of like Titanic in space. It takes place starts on a luxury cruise liner that crash lands on a planet that is seemingly uninhabited. There are 2 survivors, Tarver Maritson and Lilac LaRue. They come from different classes, so similar to Titanic, it's in that way. So they have to struggle to survive, but there's a lot of real science here, and they start to have strange visions and hear strange things, and so they think that they're maybe not quite alone as they once thought they were. So that is These Broken Stars. We also have The True Meaning of Smecte by Adam Rex for children. This was made into the movie Home that came out last spring, and I know everyone says the book is always better, but this is actually the case. The book is really much better. It tells the story of Gratuity Tucci. She's a 12-year-old whose mother was abducted by an alien race called the Boov, who have now invaded the whole planet, and all of the citizens of the United States are being forced to move to Florida. But she decides that she's not going to join one of the rocket ships to Florida, but she's going to drive herself, as a 12-year-old, to Florida to find her mother. She loads up her car with her cat named Pig, and right when she gets out of town, she runs into a rogue Boov named J-Lo, and they have a lot of adventures. They discover the secrets of Area 51, they go to a place that's sort of like Walt Disney World, and they save the world from another invading alien race called the Gorg. It's a really fun read. We have a ton of fun activities all month long for both age groups, leading up to our Skype sessions with both authors at the end of the month. So if anyone wants, I have copies of these books as well. So if you'd like copies of these, we can hand them out. I don't know if you want to raise your hand, we can give you a teen or a children's book. That's it. So thanks for letting me talk about that. I'll turn it back over to Brad.
And just the last thing that I wanted to say, because we're nothing without our partners, we just wanted to thank, as I was writing this list, I can't believe it, 21 partners. So if this feels like the Oscars, but just to let you know who helps us out with these things, we partnered with KU Libraries. The Friends of Lawrence Public Library always give us money to fund these great things and hand out. We don't hand books out for free and not ask them back with tax dollars. We do that with private funds. KU Department of Physics and Astronomy, KU School of Music, the Dole Institute, Spencer Museum of Art, SUA, the Kansas Humanities Council, Lawrence Arts Center, Lawrence Public Schools, the Cosmosphere. If you haven't been to the library, we borrowed a spacesuit from the Cosmosphere. Kennedy Glass, we should thank them too, built a glass thing because you can't touch it. Mad Science, Liberty Hall, Kingston Printing, Nerd Night, Cider Gallery, Douglas County Amateur Radio Club, the Boy Scouts of America, Hot Box Cookies, Papa John's, and Crown Automotive. So we just want to publicly thank all of the partners who help us put this on for the community. We're really thrilled. Things kick off this week. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you.
Brad, just real quick, and you know, I got to say this, that we appreciate all the work that goes into Read Across Lawrence. I mean, this is a great program, and I think in the past we've done To Kill a Mockingbird, and you know, just all kinds of things. And it's really a great program. But you know, we've been a little hectic around here lately. It's good to see something fun come from that that podium. I mean, to tell you, it really is. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. We're thrilled to do it for the community. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay.
It's always nice to get books when we
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like to have removed for separate discussion? Okay. Any item on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate discussion? Okay. Hearing none, then we need to add claims to 150 vendors in the amount of $3,023,535.78. So with the addition of claims, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the consent agenda with the claims made by Commissioner Herbert, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor of that motion, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Next item is the city manager's report. Diane?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. A couple of items to highlight for you this evening. We have the December 2015 monthly building permit report for you there, and we continue to be very strong in our permit activity and building activity in Lawrence, which is great news. And then we also have the Eagle Bend Golf Course business plan for you. So staff has been working on some different ways to generate some additional revenue related to the golf course. And there's a business plan summary for you that kind of highlights some of the different items that, that they are proposing and will be working on. I know they appreciate the flexibility with being able to be more competitive and appropriate with the market on fees. One of the things that I would highlight there is the elimination of the pass. So what we have been finding is that people that do purchase those passes tend to take up some of the best tee times, which is a challenge for us revenue-wise. And so that's something that we're planning on implementing here for this calendar year, and along with the other items that you see there. But staff continues to work hard in different ways to help generate revenue for the course. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Diane, have we had discussion about what that discount card is going to be, or what it's going to look like, or what the discount is going to be?
I'm going to ask Mark or Darren to address that.
Hello, Mark Ecker with Parks and Rec. Yeah, we have a full series of the discount cards. Basically, what it entails is you can purchase 10 and you get a 20% discount, or you can purchase 50, get a bigger discount, or if you want to purchase 100 rounds at one time, you can get up to a 50% discount. What we need to do with that is control our discount levels. So we aren't wanting to get away from the folks who want to come out and play a whole bunch of golf, but we need to control the discounts, because basically we're getting down to about $8 a round on some of those annual passes. This way we control it and we keep it at about $20 a round as our lowest round we're going to allow on the course. So that's especially important on the weekend rounds. When we were trying to sell a weekend round for $49 and then we have people playing for $8, then that doesn't help us very much on the bottom line revenue.
So how will this, you said the projected increase of 119,000, is that right?
Mhm.
How does that work towards our bottom line?
Well, basically this year we lost money, so we spent a little bit more than we brought in, so that's something we need to correct. We don't want to do that more than 1 year. We can do it 1 year because we have a fund balance there, but basically looking at small fee increases there, looking at changing this annual pass. We need to work on sponsorships more. We need to recruit more tournaments. There's a whole range of things that we go into that $119,000. So what we want to do, last year was a bad year for weather too. We lost, I think, 6 or 7 weekends that just swamped us out, which would normally get, $10,000 to $15,000 on a weekend. So that hurt us more than anything. But going forward, we want to make that a little more profitable, because there is equipment pieces we need to replace, and there's just things we want to do to run that business out there. So,
Other questions, Mark?
if you have any hard questions, Darren's here. He's actually the one with all the answers. He just tells me what to say.
Matt, you're going to run out and buy 100 rounds of golf, aren't you?
Come as a surprise to you, but I've never played golf.
Oh,
Maybe better start with 10 then.
well, I don't play well, so there we go. Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions of Diane on either one of the items? Okay, thanks, Diane. Next item on the agenda is general public comment. The public is always allowed to speak on any of the items or issues that are not scheduled on the agenda after first being recognized as the mayor. As general practice, the commission will not discuss or debate those items, nor will the discussion or the commission make decisions on items presented during this time. Rather, they will refer the items to staff for follow-up. Individuals are asked to come to the microphone, sign in, and state their name and address, and speakers should address all comments and questions to the commission. Is there any general public comment on items that are not on the agenda tonight? Yes, sir.
Dan Dannenberg, 2702 University Drive. Two things. Number one, I took a little walk around the neighborhood bounded by Crestline on the east, 9th Street on the north, Cassold on the west, and Bob Billings Parkway on the south today. And I didn't cover every street or every area, but as a result of that, I did come up with 4 instances where I thought code violations were happening, and I made reports via the city's website. Yesterday, I was driving west on 8th Street, West 8th Street, and there was about 3 different city trash carts overturned right next to the sidewalk and trash scattered everywhere. And I reported it to the code enforcement office via the website and went by there today, and it was cleaned up. The upshot of this is the neighborhood is deteriorating. And I know you don't care, but there are too many instances where properties, particularly rental properties, are heaped with trash. They have too many cars parked on the lawns. And of course, we've had, not far from where I live, we had a great narcotics adventure about a year ago. I think we need a different regimen for policing and monitoring neighborhoods. What we have now is not working. And I know you are all working, in essence, for landlords and developers and like that, but we need to do something to conserve these neighborhoods. Because to see something like this deteriorate and go downhill is not good. I recently sent a photograph of a truck and a trailer that are parked in driveways about 3 houses west of where I live. That shouldn't be allowed. Trucks and trailers should not, and boats should not be parked on residential property. That's ridiculous. We have places around town, around the community, where you can park those things for a fee, of course, but I think these people who own these fancy boats and trailers and whatnot are evidently too cheap, are too disrespectful of the neighborhood. The second thing I want to comment on is the amount of trash and clothing along Massachusetts Street. As I walked up here, I noticed on the northeast corner of 8th and Massachusetts in the planter, there was a broken package of clothes just spewed on the planter. And this is not an uncommon sight. A couple of weeks ago, I happened to be downtown it was about 10:30 p.m. and on the west side of the 800 block of Massachusetts Street, there were 2 trash bags full of what looked to be clothing, just sitting there in a planter. Now, are people dumping these clothes so transients and homeless can access them? I don't know. Or how do they come to be there? I can tell you they're not adding to the appearance and ambiance of Massachusetts Street. And I think we need a better system of monitoring behaviors and activities along Massachusetts Street. Now, I know the police don't want to do it. They've got other things to do, but there needs to be something else done to make sure that Massachusetts Street doesn't become a slum, because it's well on its way. I can tell you that. I spend enough time downtown and see enough, particularly when the weather is warm. The final point is, last summer I talked to a Lawrence police officer about this, and he said he had lived in Lawrence his entire life, and he said Massachusetts is the worst he had ever seen it. And I share that view. Now, I know that's one of the things I know you don't care about either, but I think it's something that needs to be given attention. Because sooner or later, somebody is going to get the idea that, well, wait a minute, we're coming down to a blighted area, and I don't know. People may decide to go elsewhere with their business. And at another point I'll bring up, not tonight, but another point I'll bring up the northeast corner of the intersection of Kentucky and 9th Street. Somebody got favored treatment on that. Well, as I say, I'll talk about that at a later time.
Okay, thank you. Other public comment? Any other general public comment? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dan. We are on to the regular agenda. I would ask anyone who has their phone with them if they would please silence it at this time. That would be great. Just one of the rules, the public is allowed to speak on any of the regular agenda items or give public comment after first being recognized by the mayor. Individuals are asked to come to the microphone, sign in, and state their name and address. Speakers should address all comments and questions to the commission. I don't know how many people we're going to have to speak here this evening, but some of the items I may ask, see how many people are here, and we may limit the time just so everybody gets a chance to be able to speak tonight on things. First item on the agenda is to consider approving the findings of facts regarding the city's disapproval of a zoning map amendment application number Z-15-00327, seeking to rezone approximately 59.8 acres from RS10 residential district to CR regional commercial district, and zoning map amendment application number Z-15-00328, seeking to rezone approximately 6.7 acres from RS10 residential district to OS open space district, all of which is located on the southeast corner of the interchange of K10 and US highways. Randy.
Mayor, Commissioners, Randy Larkin with Senior Assistant City Attorney. On January 5th, the City Commission denied 2 applications for rezoning. It was contested on both sides. The Kansas Supreme Court has recommended that when it's contested like that and there is potential for litigation, that it's a good idea to prepare findings of fact so that it has something to review in the event that there is litigation. So we have done that, and we attempted to capture the evidence that was presented before you, your findings and your conclusions, and we have presented them for your review and approval tonight. I would point out that on the posted copy at the top of page 4 in paragraph 8, in the parenthetical sentence at the end of that, the word "not" was omitted. That has been added back in, so it should say "not necessary" as opposed to "necessary." And the city clerk has that, and also the city clerk has a copy of the 1988 findings, which was Appendix A. That was also not posted with this new posting. It was in a previous posting, so that's there. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions, Randy? Okay. Randy, thank you. Thanks for making that change on paragraph 8. Is there any public comment on this item? Public comment? Okay, then back to the commission. Well,
Thank you for your work on it.
yeah, thank all the members of the commission who chimed in and worked with city staff, and specifically the city manager and the legal office, in coming up with, I think, a solid set of findings of fact. So, anyway.
My only question on it was on page 7, which is, what's that section? And I guess that would be the section where we present our evidence that we find to be credible. Subpoint C, we talk about characteristic of the neighborhood, and it talks about that the area will include medium density residential use. And so we're finding that because of the character of the neighborhood, we think that's going to be residential, but then a page later, or 2 pages later, we find that the area will probably need to be rezoned as residential is not likely. So I'm wondering if, given that we state in the paper that the subject property is appropriate for rezoning, if it makes sense under character of the neighborhood to describe the residential as being the usage in the future. Does that make sense?
On your 2 pages later, what?
Okay, so page
What
7,
number?
yeah, so let's see here. It's more than 2 pages, I lied to you. Page 12, at the very end, it says, and I'm reading from it here, the city commission is of the opinion that rezoning of the subject property may be appropriate. But we say for characteristic of the neighborhood that it's going to be medium density residential. So we're stating in the report that it's going to be residential, but also that it will need to be rezoned, not residential. Right?
Right, I believe that's from Horizon 2020. A large portion of, but not the complete track there, is set aside for auto-related commercial, and then there's going to be medium density out beyond that. So the
South of that?
Yeah, south and to the east of that was set aside for medium residential, and so I think the finding was that it's probably not right there on the corner. It's probably not going to be really good for residential, but the commercial regional then would be.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the point of that.
Okay.
Do you think that was something that I visited with Randy about the other day too? So.
Yeah, if we envision that the piece of land we're debating about will not be residential, I just question the appropriateness of stating that it should be residential if we know that it won't be. That's the only thing.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to expand a little bit on what I said at the time, and that is that the community essentially has adopted Horizon 2020 as the vision for the future. If we want to change that vision, we should do it through a planning process, not through a process of exception, which is, I think, what we were faced with here. So if there's interest in doing something different than what Horizon 2020 provides, then I think that needs to come through, say, a revision of 2020 or another plan.
Okay. But that is not something that's part of the discussion tonight as far
Right,
as
well,
action.
yeah.
Is that something that you plan on?
No, I didn't do a very
Bring it
good
up
job
and
of explaining where I was
Okay,
coming from,
okay.
so that's why I wanted to take this opportunity.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Did you have anything?
No, I thought the findings of facts were very well outlined as to what we thought and what we discussed.
Okay. Well, me too. Okay, so if there is nothing else, then again, thank you, Tony, Randy, and the work that you had done. Randy, thanks for all the work that was put into the findings of fact. So if there are no other questions or comments on the findings, I would entertain a motion then to approve the findings of fact.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the findings of fact was made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to consider FD-15-00642 for revisions to the approved plan for mixed-use development located at 1101 Indiana Street, commonly known as the HERE project, reducing the number of parking spaces by 69, adding an access point to the parking garage from 11th Street, and limiting occupancy to only those uses supported by the reduced parking. The application does not include related zoning preliminary development plan requests to construct parking garage on property located south, located 1137 Indiana Street. Those requests will be considered by the City Commission upon a recommendation by the Planning Commission and after Historic Resources Commission decision. Scott?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Scott McCullough with the Planning Office, tag teaming with Sandy Day, a planner in our office who's worked on this project from its initial application. I'm going to just open with a few comments and summary, and then Sandy's going to walk you through the more detail of the project application before you tonight. This project was approved in 2014 with these components: a 624-bedroom, 247-unit mixed-use building complex that included over 13,000 square feet of commercial on the street level sides of it, and due to the topography, there's different street level sides there and on different floors of the building. It included a parking garage structure with 577 spaces and 108 spaces of on-street parking. That garage structure incorporated a relatively new, at least to Lawrence, parking scheme that used robotic parking to take cars through the structure, lift cars to different floors through elevator system, and park them in a stacked horizontal tandem fashion in different parking spaces. The project also includes a number of off-site improvements related to just public infrastructure, sewer, water, stormwater, the like, and did have a neighborhood revitalization area plan adopted with it as well. So that was the project that was originally approved in 2014. This is the project as it stands today. We provided you a memo late this afternoon. I apologize for the tardiness of it, but it stemmed from some questions we were getting as we posted the packet last week, so I hope you've had a chance to review that memo. It talks a little bit about the status of the building as we understand it and talking to the contractor today. Essentially, the right side of this photo is completed in terms of the number of stories on the building. This is the south side of the building. The left side of the photo is the north side or north tower of the building, and it is on level 6, floor 6 of 8 floors there. So what you see sticking up there is the 6th floor under the framing portion right now. In last year, late summer, the applicant learned that the parking vendor for the robotic system filed for bankruptcy and informed us shortly thereafter of that news, and then talked to us about what they were going to do to pursue their options in resolving this issue. One of the points of the late memo today is that any time a portion of a project that has been approved changes and has impact to other parts of the project, it's incumbent upon the applicant to resolve and solve those issues. In other words, when a supply of parking is reduced for whatever reason, then that affects the demand or it affects the ability to go find more supply. And so whenever we see that there's a change in a plan development, we look for revision to that development plan, and that's what you have before you tonight. So this presented a really big challenge to the applicant, of course, and a challenge for us to help them review options and seek out what processes would be in front of them for whatever solution they came to. For a while, as they pursued the parking solution, we did not actually hear what the solution was, and then ultimately, Jim Heffernan with the HERE development came to us and said that he had developed a solution that he wanted to present to the city and to run through our processes. So one solution pursued is to get the supply back. So the project has lost 69 spaces with the transfer of parking from robotic to what they're proposing as human valet parking. The reason is that the robotic parking allowed much greater number of cars to be parked in a way that didn't have circulation, that humans need to maneuver cars around. It allows more stacking in horizontal space. A number of things. You don't have to open the doors. All kinds of reasons that we've lost parking in this project. And so to make up for that, the solution offered by the developer is to transform the parking to a valet system, and Sandy will run you through some of the details about what that looks like on this project, and has also filed requests to rezone and with a plan development overlay on the parcel just immediately south. I think I've got that in this map here, that where that star is just south of the orange hatched parcel of the subject property. That is a solution offered by the applicant to recapture all the spaces lost with the original project's loss of the robotic parking, and actually also to put more parking in, because when originally approved, the number of spaces couldn't accommodate all of the commercial space as restaurant use. So that was part of the plan, was knowing that we wouldn't have full restaurant use in the commercial space. We'd have retail or service uses there, as well as restaurant up to a certain square footage. So our approach in learning of the robotic parking issue has been to facilitate to our greatest extent solutions to this. We have a building that was under construction at the time, good way under construction. In fact, the parking structure was complete at the time we learned of this parking issue. And so as they started raising the building out of the ground, the discussions early on led to, well, what parking can we have at the site and what can that accommodate of this mixed-use building? So in the general summary is that the project is reducing parking. It only accommodates a portion of the building, and the portion that the applicant wants to forego while they pursue other supply is all of the commercial space. So that's one solution, and we have seen it as a temporary solution, interim solution, while this other supply side is pursued in any event. We've also found, based on the numbers given, that a certain portion of the residential cannot be accommodated with the parking on site. And we've outlined that. That's 23 bedrooms. That does translate to a number of units. We don't have the precise number of units yet because it depends on the mix of bedrooms within the units. If you take up staff's recommendation for approving the final development plan, but withholding occupancy, then we will have to work out which floor, which set of units, which corridor doesn't get occupancy permit as the project proceeds toward an August move-in date of residents. Do also want to note that what's not before the commission tonight is the other part of what the applicant is pursuing. That is a rezoning effort. It's a quasi-judicial matter that can't be prejudged until you hear all of the testimony and all of the record. It is scheduled to go before the Planning Commission and Historic Resources Commission as part of the process to eventually come to this body for a decision on its part of the project. The late memo today talks about kind of what we do in these situations where parking can't accommodate the full mix. And one of them is to go get the parking back. The other is to reduce the use, which we are recommending you do on a temporary fashion. If supply can't be found at the end of the day, then the part of the last alternative really is to just reduce the intensity of the use altogether and only park what you can there to accommodate the use. And so the late memo identifies a few scenarios what that might look like in the future if it comes to that. So unless there are questions of me, I'll let Sandy run you quickly through the details of the plan tonight. The plan tonight, the request is a revised final development plan, and Sandy will walk you through that, and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. The revised final development plan has a couple of very specific things that it is requesting. One is that it has a request to include additional access to 11th Street. This is a function of how the garage portion of that building was constructed. Access to that second level of parking is really only accessible from 11th Street. So to make that viable parking, additional access would be needed, and that also revises the elevation of the building. As we've noted, as Scott was talking about, and in the various memos, the parking provided in the garage structure is 110 parking spaces. That's down from the 577 that we saw in the approved plan. And then the on-street parking. The on-street parking is a calculation that is based on the approved plan without making any changes to the street that would be affected by the 1137 Indiana project. So if that project were to be constructed, that would reduce that on-street parking by a couple of spaces. We have taken that particular question of that property out of the equation and looked at just the parking for this building independent. Access to this valet system will be predominantly provided to Mississippi Street entrance. That elevation has 3 access points to it today, where you enter the garage, where you exit the garage, and then there's another driveway that is the service where the trash trucks and other service delivery can be made to that building. This elevation does not change with this project. What happens internally is that a valet room has been added where there were some other spaces within that garage for the system, the robotic system that is no longer being proposed with this project. This is really just trying to highlight for you that you come into that garage space. There's some stacking that is inherently constructed with the interior of that building. There is still the doorway that takes you to that residential lobby space. And just to get you acclimated, this is that first floor commercial space that fronts both to Mississippi Street and to 11th Street.
Hey, Sandy,
Yes.
on that picture, is each space 3 cars or each space 1 car?
I'm going to touch on that
All
just
right,
right
thank
now.
you.
Okay. Then the 11th Street access changes, as we've mentioned. That building elevation adds 2 garage access points to the street. Before, this really looked very similar to this elevation of the building. And just for context, it's putting you in that northeast corner of the building itself as you're looking at the building orientation. This is the 3rd floor retail space as it starts to go up 11th Street and starts to wrap around to Indiana. So where is that parking provided in the garage? Well, it's a not stacked parking, tandem parking, if you will. Within that, what you're seeing here is a representation of what that stacked parking or that tandem parking looks like. Within this space, you have cars as deep as 4. Other areas, you typically have 2, and then between those supporting beams, about 3 spaces wide typically. What we've highlighted in this blue area are parking spaces that are less than 8 feet wide. This is a calculation we took from the plan. There's not specific dimensions on this drawing. If this were a standard parking lot or parking structure where individuals were parking, obviously this kind of design would not be workable. But because it's being forwarded as a valet system, you don't have those multiple individuals having to circulate and navigate throughout that parking garage. You can reduce some of those parking requirements that you would have in a standard parking facility. The second level of that parking is the same configuration. It's kind of this center portion of the building where things narrow down. From what we can tell in looking at the plan, most of these spaces are meeting about an 8-foot width of a parking stall. These spaces, as you can see, these go as deep as 5, I believe, in this area here. So, but you also have access from 2 sides of it on that level. We've given you a couple of different summaries about the required parking and how that relates to an overall demand for parking to support this use. There's 624 bedrooms that are proposed in the project. Parking requirement per code is 1 space per bedroom. And then there is also a parking requirement based on guest parking or based on the number of units. The commercial space, when we looked at the plan originally, it had a mix of both retail commercial as well as restaurant commercial. Depending on that mix of use, that will have an impact on the total number of parking. For instance, if all of that commercial space is built out as eating and drinking, that has a much higher parking requirement than, say, the retail use of that same space. Some mix of parking is probably what is anticipated. The parking supply, based on what the applicant has proposed, both in the garage and on street, accommodates 601 of the 624 approved bedrooms. This is an estimate that there are 23 bedrooms that would not be supported by this project, and there would be no commercial space that would be supported based on the parking. Staff has recommended to you that we recommend withholding some of that occupancy of the overall project, all of the occupancy for the commercial space, and then occupancy of some portion of the residential element, specifically 23 bedrooms within that project. And as Scott mentioned, because those units come in 1, 2, 3, or 4 bedroom units, that unit calculation is something we'll still have to sort through. Your options this evening are to approve the request, modify that request with conditions, deny the request, or defer this particular request. This evening, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about this project at this time.
Cindy, and there is, in our code,
Yes.
I could ask what page valet parking is on.
You would not find it
I would
listed.
not find it, yeah.
The code is silent on valet parking.
What does it say about
Tandem parking.
Or stacked parking? Or stacks, tandem?
On the tandem parking, we have some regulation and some interpretation as that applies to specific residential forms. I think Scott can address that as well. In the building, when we talk about stacked parking for this project, we're talking about stacking one on top of the other. That is applicable to the 1137 property, not to the garage. So I'm trying to remember to use the word tandem parking so that we're going back to front.
Yeah, if this were a patron, consumer-oriented parking structure, it would fall short drastically of our code standards and our design, and we would not be supportive of it. It's the valet nature that has to be there with this proposal to have any validity at all with the parking design proposed.
Are the stalls more narrow than a standard stall?
The code requires 8.5-foot wide stalls for a typical parking garage to maneuver cars in and out and to be convenient for door access. Some codes go as low as 8 for compact cars. And so the majority of these are at 8 feet, at least the scale's out on the plan like that. The middle section that Sandy showed you appears to be less than 8 feet, so.
So how does one park an automobile in 7.5 feet and get out of it?
Well, there's a couple things there.
Roll down the window?
It's going to be a challenge, the Dukes of Hazzard way. I mean, you would have to reserve those for the subcompact model cars. And I think there's a strong debate about whether they're usable in terms of being in practice used, or whether the valet attendants would double park, come and park over lines and not use them. So
if you eliminated the spots that are 7.5 feet wide, how many spots are they short?
we did not do that calculation.
Hundreds? I mean, it is.
No, I mean, it would be, where's your,
If you go back.
It's a bunch.
so it would be, there's 2 layers, so essentially each row would lose.
Because, I mean, I'm even looking at that one. If you go to the bottom right-hand corner, how do you get a car out of that spot? The bottom right-hand corner, if I park my car
Down here?
in that spot,
Whoops, I'm sorry, I'm pointing and you can't see where I'm pointing
Down here in the bottom.
to. Down here?
the one right in front of, yeah, exactly, where you no, all the way over to the right, and then up.
In here?
There appears to be some sort of structure in front of that, right?
A meter room.
So if I have a car parked to my left, how do I get out of that spot?
Well, right, it's going to take some maneuvering of the cars to the side to be able to get in there. Have this vacant and then maneuver into these spots.
So you leave spots vacant is the answer to that, right?
Well, I think what you would be able to do is maneuver the spots here to get cars situated here and then fill in as they get situated. It would not be convenient. Again, this would not meet our code in terms of a patron-oriented parking lot.
Does that mean we're giving them an exception?
But this is before you to weigh in on these very issues. That's why we've provided this to you, to strike the balance between trying to facilitate the programmed uses and try to establish that balance. And I would also recommend, Mayor, that you provide ex parte communications for this project when it's convenient.
Commissioner Larson, regarding your question about whether or not this is from the code, this same type of layout is exactly the same with fewer, well, I guess with more parking spaces as the robotic plan had been. So it was still doing this type of layout in the robotic example.
But the robotic doesn't require anybody to get out of a car.
Correct.
This is true.
See a lot of ding doors.
So we have other places in town doing valet parking right now. Okay?
Right.
And are they parking in a similar size space to this?
We'd have to get out those plans, Mayor, and compare the examples for it, and we haven't done that for you.
Okay. But other than a couple of the places that I can think of, which would be 2 hotels that are doing it,
Right.
do we have anybody else that is in residential real estate, apartments that does anything like this?
Not to my knowledge.
And, well, okay.
Yeah. This would be the 3rd valet system that I'm aware of in the city.
Okay. Okay, any other questions of staff right now?
I'd like to see how many spaces, even with the tandem valet, but, more of a standard width of a parking stall. I'm also curious, below the pink, the row that goes horizontal, how, it looks like cars are blocking it in the blue section. So if your car was parked just below the pink box, and presumably they were gonna be facing straight up like they are now, and they pull out, but aren't the blue and the orange and the yellow and the orange car in the way of them getting
No, you
the
would
car
have
out?
to,
It's a little confusing.
you would have to back up and get this car out and then go through the access point. To provide a little perspective on what's hampering the area here appears to be the columns, the double column here, for example. About 28 spaces would be lost to go to the full 8 feet here. You would take out the 3rd space between the bay 7 times 7 times 4 there. And so that's that layer, and then probably something similar here. So it would be a reduction of,
56?
yeah.
That leaves us 120 short.
So if they're backing out, is that row below them then the standard width of a horizontal, a drive? I don't know the right vocabulary to use.
It would accommodate the circulation for the valet system, yes.
Is it a standard?
It's not,
width, though?
it's about 16 feet, and our standard for two-way traffic in a consumer-oriented garage is 24 feet.
It would meet one-way circulation.
What was that? Sorry.
Sorry, it would meet one-way circulation.
Mhm.
But it can't just be one way.
Not if you want to go anywhere for a while.
So I'm not sure.
Right,
Well,
and the expectation is that it's not all of us in this garage.
Right.
It is
It's a-
designated employee, valet, people doing this, so I'm sure the applicant can address more specifically how they understand the operation to be.
You know, Scott mentioned the ex parte. I guess we should mention that me and the mayor met with the developer, and I think you were there, and I think you were there, but I don't remember your name, to talk about this. And at that time, I didn't realize it wasn't just a standard parking garage. I have to say that. Somehow I got the idea that it was just a regular parking garage. I didn't know that it was
Yeah, it
this
was-
tandem valet business.
I was going to bring that up. We were never shown, the
Actual
reduced
drawing.
spaces. so-
Well, this map wasn't part of the packet until
No.
this
That's all
afternoon.
that- Yeah, that's right.
And that's my error. I did not realize when the plans went up that those pages were missing.
Yeah. So over the summer, when we heard that they had a new solution, it was just, thank goodness. And then, but now I see this solution, and it's like, oh boy. Oh boy.
Okay, any questions of staff right now before we get to ex parte? Okay, thank you. Lisa, do you have any ex parte?
I do not.
Okay. Vice Mayor, any others?
I just had the same emails everyone got.
Is that the ones that came from Dennis Brown? I know that,
Candace
Hey.
Davis.
yeah, so everybody got those.
They were all
Um,
Dale Slesser, Carrie Altenbrand.
Right? Those, the ones that
Scott
came
White.
today.
Yeah.
Okay, I did have a question, in regards, it came from Steve Schwada about the stack parking or tandem parking and what, and the question about valet parking also, so. Okay. So I had those. And also the ones this summer with gentleman from Land Plan and the applicant, so. Anyway, Stuart?
I just had the same emails.
Okay.
Same emails, and I did talk to Steve Schwada, and I also talked to Charles Jones, but it just kind of came up in passing conversation. He didn't have any insider information or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you all. Mr. Heffernan?
Hey, Scott, you were going to help me put this in, make sure. There you go. Yep.
It's nice and warm in here tonight.
Thank you.
It's toasty.
How, this is great. Sorry for the delay. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the Lawrence City Commission. A lot of new faces. My name is Jim Heffernan. I'm with the development company called Here Enterprises. We started this project, we originally came to Lawrence in 2012. We originally presented in front of this committee in 2013. And I think the staff memo referenced when we actually got the project approved, which was a little over 19 months ago. It is not an indication as that we're slow workers. I think it's an indication as to the complexity of the project. It is unprecedented in your community on every facet. It's a project of 454,000 square feet. It has 1,150 linear feet of street frontage. That's a little over a fifth of a mile. There's nothing like it in Lawrence. This is, I don't know if you've seen these, but these are our approved FTP renderings of the building. This building, this idea was not ours. This building, this project actually was envisioned in the Oread neighborhood plan, part of the 2020 plan, approved by the city of Lawrence in 2010. In it, it referenced the acreage that we have and the additional acreage we're wanting to rezone. It envisioned a future land use of mixed use, and with an overlay District 2, which is the highest density. This project represents the actually implementing that plan. This is from what would be the northwest corner, looking, the Oread would be in the southeast corner. So you can see we're looking over it. This is the area in the middle is the raised pool. I think you can see that under the superstructure that is currently built. This is 8 stories on this side and 7 stories on that, on the south side. Here's an example of this pool. Here's what would be the intersection of 11th and Indiana. You can see here, this is the new bus pullout. This site is unique in terms of its public transportation accessibility. KU Transit says it has more buses going by than any other location in your city outside of the Union, which is obviously on campus. Between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. when school is in session, a bus comes by our site, either on the Mississippi side or on the Indiana side, about every 3 minutes. That was inherent to the vision in the Oread plan, the green nature of the public transportation that this site has. Here is what would be the southeast corner. This is looking northwest. So directly behind the person looking in this perspective would be the Oread Hotel. This is an example of this is a rendering of our lobby. This building has endless features that are unique and new to the city of Lawrence. This brings an element of urbanism to the city that it currently doesn't have. Services like food delivery, we will have for our residents. So we have an arrangement with one of your local grocery stores. Because of the size of this building, allows for opportunities for service that have never readily been available. So a student can actually order food from a local grocery store and have it delivered. In the common areas of the building, we actually have stock refrigerators to accept perishable goods to be delivered in that manner. Additional services obviously will be dry cleaning and laundry services that the kids, although they have washers and dryers in their units, can still have those services delivered. Here's a further example of our lobby. Most lobbies in apartment buildings or student housing buildings are not near this spacious, particularly in urban settings. We will have what I understand is the first residential basketball court in a residential building, as well as a state-of-the-art fitness facility. When I presented before, I always stated that this would be a unique building. the fact that this building has actually 3 separate first floors, all at different levels, it makes the site unique in and of itself. It is actually a architectural feat to have 3 different first floors all at different levels. The nature of the construction, the staff briefly kind of gave you an update as to where we are. This is looking southeast. So this is the final floor on what would be the east side. This is the Indiana side looking west toward the stadium. On this side of the building, it's 3 stories. But on the other side of the building, it's 7 stories. And yet within inside the building, the resident will not perceive any difference from floor to floor. It's just how we were able to negotiate the 6 stories of fall on this site. The nature and how this was constructed was the first 2 tiers of the garage were constructed with PT deck. That is a methodology for strengthening concrete that uses post-tension. So it gets the tensile strength of the concrete is created by actually putting strands of wire that are under high tension into the pore as the concrete is curing. So between the stiffness of the concrete and the strength of the steel, that's how the whole system, that's how the structure works. The floor is an integral part of what allows the columns to actually stand vertical. So it's a very integrated structural system that's supporting this building. This building is constructed of steel studs. So currently, like today, we had a little over 150 people working on that building. When you drive around it or look at it, it doesn't seem that many, but that shows you the enormity of the building, is how many people you can put in there. What's happening and what already has happened that's not evident from a peripheral review of the construction status is that the MEPs, the mechanicals, the electrical, and the plumbing rough-ins have been completed on all stories 3 through 5 already in the building. And they're going to be finishing on floor 6 on the south floor. So once this final floor on the south side is complete, which I would say by looking at this photograph, it's about 90%, the roof will be on. I've been told that it will be substantially completed by the end of next week. Once we actually then get the windows on is when we can actually start drywalling the south tower. When we're in a position to do that, the number of people on the site will exponentially grow. By the end of February, the north tower will be complete, and what is 150 people on site today will grow to over 250 people. When you're building a large structure like this, you're actually creating the cubic capacity for workers as you continue. So the number of workers actually crescendos at the end, allowing us to meet our deadline. Student housing is the most sensitive to delivery of any real estate type. When a parent brings a child to drop them off, they're counting on that resident being ready for that child. Many of these families travel considerable distances, both within the state and even beyond, internationally even. And there is a commitment to making sure that happens. Our development team has developed over 20,000 student housing beds. We are committed to making that happen. Most developers are erectors of brick and mortar. If you look at the original submittal, we said that we're curators of an experience. And what I mean by that is the experience is everything. It's how we orchestrate the move in, move out. It's how we furnish the units. It's how we design the building. It's how we operate it. It's how we clean it. It's the amenities we provide in it. It's the services. And it's certainly the parking. Parking is an integral part of this building. All bad ideas were good ideas at one time. When we proposed robotic parking, it was a cutting-edge idea that was taking off in the large metropolitan areas. It appeared that it should and would work. As you know, the company that we were under contract with went bankrupt. I don't know if you noticed, but we're not the only ones that actually thought that robotic parking was good. There was a story that appeared in November of 2015, shortly after we were notified that our contractor had bankrupted itself, is that the headline is, "Road to Robotic Parking is Littered with Faulty Projects." We truly believe that robotic parking will someday be the green solution that we wanted it to be. You as a community embrace what green ideals it represents. It is a smart technology, and it's the most green parking solution that you can possibly have, but it's just not ready for prime time. So we're faced with a situation where we have to finish what we promised to deliver. Valet parking, unlike robotic parking, although new and unique to the city of Lawrence with your 2 hotels, is a science that is commonplace in any large metropolitan area. Our development principals are all urbanites, born and raised, and that is the primary business that we are in: luxury, residential, urban, vertical, mixed-use projects. Student housing is a division of that primary purpose, but we have tremendous experience in valet parking. And the methodologies for it, and analyzing how the 2 hotels currently work, we would not operate under that same basis. Here's the other side showing what I think the staff showed. So I think it's very important to understand the nature of how valet works. The whole garage is obviously originally designed and built for robotic parking, which was the ultimate of stacked parking. What allowed us to stack cars so deep was robotic parking. The system we were utilizing allowed for movement both east, west, and north-south, allowing for maximum flexibility of movement, as well as the ability to densify cars, because there's no need for ramps, there's no reason for aisles. It's a highly efficient, at least in theory, operating system. The complexities of it, however, is that you are trying to simulate what people have been doing in valet parking with a human mind and software, completely with a computer algorithms, which is currently, we determined, not sufficient enough to deliver the experience that we want. So how does one organize a garage like this? Well, first of all, our plan is to have 2 valet stations. One here, which people residents of the building would actually be coming in and queuing in here. And these spaces are actually, well, let me start over here. How you organize a valet garage is that you actually characterize different spaces. So within this garage, there are 4 different types of spaces. And the distinguishing factors are as follows. There's a kind of space that are called active queuing spaces. Those are spaces that are designed and placed in a manner that actually allows patrons to deliver their car and then for them to go. There are these spaces right here. These 34 spaces in this area here are the queuing spots. They represent 6% of the capacity of that garage. This is the valet spot. This is where the valets will be. The valets will have a program that identifies all of these spaces on a computer. And when they take the keys from someone, they will ask them when do they need the space. So if this will be a little complicated, but there's 4 different types of spaces, and I'll go through that in a minute. But there's also 4 different types of parkers, and they're all based on time as well. Less than an hour, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8. So, and their cars are placed in spaces that approximate those needs. And as the time nears that when they actually want the car, the valets are working, moving those cars. So what the robotics was supposed to be doing, the humans are doing. And one of the big distinguishing differences between the 2 experiences that you have right now is I believe that they are managed by the operators of the building. It would be not our intention to operate this with our own personal employees. We are currently in discussions with multiple valet companies that's all they do on a nationwide basis. So they're bringing to this situation, this operation, not only the needs of this building, but a methodology for doing that. Why we want to do that is multifaceted. First of all, there's a huge liability to that. And with a third-party vendor, they assume that liability. Second, they come with a tremendous amount of experience. They come with the integration of the software packages, which includes also an app. The valet systems of the United States have dramatically improved since smartphones have become ubiquitous. The ability to say, I'll have my car tomorrow at 10, and then all of a sudden something comes up and I want it in a half hour. They have the ability to email the system. It recharacterizes that car from its time differential and tells you that it needs to be moved or when it needs to be moved. So it's helping, it's allowing for a more efficiency of that. Making sure this garage works is obviously, it's very important to the city, it's very important to this neighborhood, it's very important to KU, but it's extraordinarily important to us. We as the operator and owner of this building have positioned this building to be the pinnacle experience of student living in Lawrence, Kansas. The parking component of that experience has to be equal to that. We have a $75 million investment making sure that this will actually be that. We are extraordinarily concentrated on this. Picking of this outside vendor is going to be vetted extraordinarily well with making sure we have full understanding of their operational plans before we select that. So to further characterize how someone goes about this is that, okay, so you've got the categories of spaces, active queuing, and then you have level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 spaces. So spaces that are immediately adjacent to an aisle are a level 1 space. Those are considered spaces that can accommodate a parking need within 3 minutes. In this picture right here of the total, it's hard to say what percentage of what we're talking about, but within the confines of just this building. So that would be the percentages that I'll reference. It actually gets better as we actually allow us to do the whole plan, but I'll just concentrate on this for now. So we have 15% of our stalls in level 1 and 6.6 in our active queuing area. And then level 2 would be spaces in the second row. So that would be here and here. And those are 6-minute spaces. And then we have a handful on this level of level 3 and, level 3 and level 4 spaces. So when someone says, I'll need my car next week, they'll go to level 4 spaces or level 3, And it is our intention that the residents of the building will be the primary users, if not the exclusive users, of the parking within the 2 levels of the deck. The primary reason for that is security. Part of what we're selling to not only the students, but their parents, is an unprecedented level of security. Our building is designed to have people go through our lobby with our 24/7 security. We have multiple cameras in all the hallways, all the common areas. We want mom and dad to feel that their kids are safe when they're in this building, from the outside at least. And having the public enter the parking garage on a regular basis, it's from our experience of operation of other student housing projects in urban areas like this, introduces a level of security that we would prefer not to encounter. So these spaces, this is the second level. So when someone drops off on that queuing area of those spaces, those 34 spaces downstairs, depending on what they tell us, all these spaces on this level that are adjacent to the drive aisles are level 2 spaces. So taking this staircase, getting the car, moving the car, we're adding 3 minutes to that exercise in order to deliver. So those are all level 2 spaces. Then these become level 3 spaces, and then these are level 4 spaces that are accessed either from either side, increasing the probability of fast accessibility. So the key is allowing the algorithms that actually direct the human bodies to move the cars. That's the key to the system, and having a functional garage that works. So they understand, because each car is labeled by a timestamp as to when it's needed, and that's changing. So over the course of several hours, a car can go from a 12-plus hour car to 8 to 12 to 3 to 8, 1 to 3, and 1. I think you understand. So that's how we deliver that kind of first-class experience. Our sister company, JDL in Chicago, is currently building the most exclusive condominium project in all of Chicago. It's called the 9. It has valet parking. So we're using that knowledge, experience, and bringing it to Lawrence, along with other elements of service that are new and unique to your community. The problem with comparing other things in Lawrence to this building is this is the only MU zone building in your city. We use a zoning class that has never been used before. There's never been a building built like this before. So as we did with the robotic parking, we were thinking anew, and now we're taking the same principles of valet parking, which is really just the big difference, quite honestly, is the introduction of humans versus machinery and subtracting the efficiencies of being able to move both directions. These can only move north-south rather than east-west, so it's not as efficient. Hence, we're short 67 spaces in the building. We obviously studied all possibilities extraordinarily meticulously. Like the assemblage that we put together here, the 1137 building in your 2020 plan has the exact same future land use and overlay of District 2 as this parcel does. It's identical. The development code, if in 20-104, the purpose of your development code, as it states, is to actually implement the city's comprehensive plan. And the Ouray Neighborhood Plan is made part of that 2020 plan. So we are, again, implementing something that the city has already envisioned all the way back to 2010. The city staff has proposed several options. I just saw the memo that went out just as I came in, I didn't see that before. But before that, they had proposed 3 different options. One to allow us to tenant all but 23 of our beds. One that would allow us to actually temporarily waive the deficiency, and one that would allow us to supplement the needed 25 spaces with KU parking. We have been in contact with KU. The city staff has been copied on that correspondence. They have agreed to allow us to rent those 25 spaces. The mayor will remember in the approval process, we actually proposed utilizing the adjacent Memorial Stadium garage, or pardon me, surface lot before. The problem that came up with it was that the city wanted a commitment in perpetuity from the university to utilize those spaces. Here, the difference, the big distinctive difference, is that we're asking for it for a period that's finite. It's not in perpetuity. So we can see a beginning and an end. The nature of some of the other proposals or options that went out today, that I just got, do not take account of the fact that parking ratios and demand are not proportional to income. The way this building is underwritten and the infrastructure that it takes to actually do this is already in place. So for people to start cutting a building up that's actually over half built, it's really, it won't allow its completion. Because the people that are lending this, they signed up to a very specific proposition of income. The nature of how these buildings rent is that bodies are needed first, and then the retail follows. The difference between the tenancy of a student, a young man or woman attending the university, is that their need for the space is at the start of the academic year. When that space is not available to them, they go elsewhere, or they don't come to the university, or they do something else. A commercial space, if it doesn't open in August, it can open in October. But a university student, that ability to lease the building is gone for the remainder of that entire year, that academic year. The nature of these students that are our customers, they don't generally transfer mid-semester. They start at the beginning, they have their arrangements made, their parents facilitate that, and they move forward. So that is a material difference to, not all portions of this building are equal. There's 454,000 square feet and only 13,000 square feet of commercial space. The commercial space is designed to be an amenity to the residents of this building, the residents of the neighborhood, and the university community. There were some, people that said we were baiting and switching, and when we did all this, I think our actions tell otherwise. We're actually proposing more parking than was originally approved. We feel that the highest and best use will be for eating establishments. All people eat, so the 23,000 students of the university, the faculty members, the staff members, and all the visitors that come to the university, the one thing they all have in common is they eat. There's not a lot of eating options within walking distance of the university. We want to supplement that, and that's the most logical use for the commercial spaces of this, and hence that's why we wanted to increase our parking. Have I said anything that promoted any questions that I can answer at all?
How much more of the presentation?
I will conclude.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I didn't want to cut you off. I just asked.
No, I know you got a lot. If there's no additional questions, I guess.
Jim, How many people does it take to run this valet operation?
That is a function, staffing is a function of learning, the nature of the demand curve. The beauty of what this site represents to the university and to the neighborhood is that it's a walkable solution. These kids will walk to class, they'll walk to downtown. Unlike living in other areas, getting into their car will not be as convenient as either getting on the bus, which is free for all students of the university, which are right there. So to answer your question, it's a function of learned demand. That's what these companies that do this professionally, that's part of what they do. It's labor scheduling. They'll see patterns develop. In the beginning, they overstaff, and then they learn, and then they staff appropriately. So if there's no demand in the morning until kids start going to jobs, like let's say at noon, or there's increased demand on weekends, they'll learn from that, and the system will respond appropriately. Having a student get their car when and how they want is critical to that experience that we're wanting to provide. I think there was a comment in the newspaper that said if they don't deliver on that service, the kids won't be back. That was a very insightful comment. That's exactly true. So that's why we have to deliver the experience as it relates to getting their car with no door dings all the time. And the interface of this, the students will learn, and the patrons of this garage will learn that their experience will exponentially get better with the accuracy of their information. So if they tell us they want the car in an hour and they don't come back for 10 hours, they're not going to have a good experience, and they will, as a resident of the building, they will be reprimanded that they have to give us accurate information. That's the beauty of the smartphones. They can, if something changes and they identify us, they can recategorize the car. Everything works perfectly. So, did I answer your question, Mayor?
Yeah. And then go back to what you'd said about KU and being able to get space.
Yes. Okay. So specifically, how that will work is the way KU has parameters in which they can do this. So the city would require confirmation that we've actually gotten the 25 spaces. So what we would do is have 25 of our residents, and we would pay for I believe it's a yellow parking pass to go across. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, if anyone knows. But whatever color it is, I believe it's yellow, a yellow parking pass to park across the street. We would pay for that for our resident, so as an incentive for them to do that. And then we would show the university and you that they are, number one, a resident of our building, and number two, have secured a parking pass. And this parking pass obligation will be for a year. If everything goes perfectly, we will have these other spaces up and operating with a 2-month lag period of time. But should there be a delay, we're allowing for that. Should, for whatever reason, we don't deliver on the 96 other spots, that's why we're making it a year. So that student isn't penalized and has to move out. But they'll have the 1 year and then we'll be penalized because we have to come before you and say, hey, this is what we're doing or this is what we're not. So I hope it's a thoughtful solution.
That was, we had received a letter, I think, from Tim Caboni.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, and I'm sorry that I see that it's not uploaded as part of the packet, but I think you all received a letter this morning from Tim Caboni with KU. And in the letter, he clarifies that the university would not be able to directly lease spaces to Mr. Heffernan's company, but he did say in the last paragraph of the letter is what the university offered to Mr. Heffernan is that any KU student in his development would be eligible to purchase a parking pass, as is the case with any student who lives off campus. Beyond that, we're also willing, with the appropriate authorization from the student, to have KU Parking and Transit confirm their purchase of the parking permit.
That's true with any apartment complex, correct?
Yes, I think he says any case with any student that lives off campus. I think what Mr. Heffernan's saying is that the project would actually purchase that
Yes.
from,
So
for the student.
Yeah, so for the students to authorize us to get that information, to be able to provide for you, that would be the reason.
Have we ever provided an apartment complex a variance to parking requirements based on KU parking tickets being sold?
I don't believe that has been the case now.
The unique thing in your code, and that's why we originally brought this up a year ago, is in the MU district, it specifically states, unlike any other district, is that parking can be provided off-site within a certain lineal feet of the perimeter of the property.
But you have to own the lot.
No, it specifically states you do not. And that's why that was why the KU solution worked up until the city wanted it in perpetuity. And that's why the KU could not do that, and rightfully so. They don't know what forever, that land will be used for, or what enhancements to the stadium they would want.
Commissioners, there were several challenges to conclude that was a very viable option at the time because there was no guarantee of close proximity to the building, essentially. So any student can get a permit and park in any number of the parking lots that are available to them per the level of parking
Well,
permit.
KU has multiple colors of lot for different lots. We would be getting the lot specifically for the Memorial Stadium lot.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant?
Yeah. You said the valet parking would be not just for the residents, it would be for others, which I assume you mean the commercial portion of the building?
Yeah, yes. The aspect of the parking that is unique to our building is that we as an applicant are spending over $1.3 million on public infrastructure. Part of that is creating the 106 parking stalls on the perimeter. Unlike any other district, again, the MU district allows for the parking to be accommodated by street parking. Did I answer your question?
So is the garage dedicated to the residents?
See, the nature of that is your code infers or allows for the possibility of actually 100% of our beds having residents with cars. We are significantly along in our leasing, and that is not the case. So that will change over time. Do we have the spaces for 100% of the residents to park? Yes. Will they use that garage? From our experience, if you recall, back when we were trying to convince the city that a 1-to-1 ratio is very unique, we had the university's traffic department analyze parking demand for their portfolio of properties over the last 20 years. And they concluded that a 75% parking ratio would be more than sufficient for our building. But we're at 100%. So there's a somewhere between 75 and 100, I think, will be the answer to that. So we're at 82% within the building itself.
So if I were to go to that restaurant to have dinner or something, would I be able to park in the garage, and would I pay for that, or is that validated by the restaurant, or how would that work?
Well, on the street, those are public metered stalls. So it would be a similar experience to downtown.
So I would not be able to park in the garage if I were a commercial user, retail user?
Well, I think it would be better if we actually parked in the proposed parking building on 11th Street. Yes.
Was that a no?
No.
So I'm not eligible to go, if I'm going to one of those restaurants, I cannot park in the garage.
Which garage are you talking about?
The one under your
One with
building.
the 600 spots.
The parking demand that's associated with those spots doesn't call for that.
So no?
So we're supplying enough parking for the commercial spaces on the street. If there are additional demand for those, we want to attract good commercial tenants. It's an operational thing. There are so many variables to this. I know you want very specific answers. we'll do what's in the best interest of the project at all times. So our number one commitment is to the residents, 2 to the commercial spaces. We want those to be viable, successful, and highly desirable for everybody. So it would make more sense, because we have more parking on Mississippi already with only 1 user, and we have more users on Indiana Street with less parking. That's part of another reason why we picked where we did, is that helps supplement that imbalance. We have more spots in Mississippi with less use, more use on Indiana. Now we have more than enough use. So if the exact parking count on the Indiana side of the building, I don't want to tell you wrong. Oh, is 49 stalls, and now we're proposing an additional 96. On the other side, Mississippi, where we have the 1 user, we already have 57. So it's an imperfect science.
So if I were a student and I was just going to KU to go to class, what would stop me from just using the garage? Not the Indiana garage, but the Mississippi entrance. Would there be anything that would stop me from using the garage?
The one on Indiana Street?
No, the one on Mississippi Street that faces the football stadium.
Right. Well, I mean, the city is asking for 100% parking, and you're saying we don't have enough spots, and now you're saying we're going to let other people in there?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
That's the challenge that we have, because we're assuming that it'll be 100% full with our residents. So the answer would be
So
no.
nothing really would stop anyone from just using the garage. Like a regular student that doesn't live in the building or isn't going to the restaurant could just pull up to Mississippi.
If they're not a resident of the building, the likelihood of them doing that is not going to be cost effective, because they can go out anywhere in the neighborhood for free. They're not going to do that inside our building.
So you'd have to pay to use the valet parking.
You have to pay to use valet parking, and you have to pay to use the metered stalls. Correct.
So every student that lives in that apartment complex is guaranteed a parking space for their car. Is that correct?
Yes, if they
In
want
that garage?
it, we have it.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a question about the entrance on 11th Street.
Yes.
Is there any issues, I don't know if this should go to you or somebody else in the city, is there any issues with that being on such a steep hill?
Very good question. I don't know if it was readily shared with the commission, but we had a supplement to our traffic study done that analyzed the slope of that road, as well as the distance from the intersection and the queuing, as well as its orientation to the Varsity House entrance. And the conclusion of that parking study was that it functioned well, and it was not a safety problem at all. If you recall, the apartment complex that we tore down had an entrance very similar to the place we were now proposing a
Down
garage
just a
entrance.
little bit, yeah. Okay. Is that going to cost the city any more money to adjust on the street for that entrance, Chuck, at all? We're okay?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question too, and I'm glad you brought it up. Since we got approved 19 months ago, the city had some issues. One was that they realized that the Oriad Hotel currently dumps the 5 levels of water from the bowels of that building onto Indiana Street. They pump it out. So we're widening that road, so all that snow, and now then it becomes ice in the wintertime, would be in the center of our spots. They asked us to fix that problem, and we agreed. So we're actually going to be improving the storm sewer on 11th Street. And then several months later, there was a problem with the storm sewer on Mississippi Street. It's very old. We've also agreed to replace that. That's the storm sewer that handles a lot of the water from the parking deck of the university, as well as ours and everyone else's. So we're also replacing that. They also said that 11th Street is in a lot worse shape than they thought, and we agreed to split that cost with the city. So all of the roads around the perimeter of us, and they also said the middle of Mississippi needed to be redone, and we agreed to split that with the city as well. So over and above, after our approval, the city wanted us to spend more money, and we agreed. We're estimating it's between $270,000 and $300,000 of additional public improvement monies that we're spending over and above the $1 million+ that we had already agreed to when you guys approved the project 19 months ago. I hope that shows that we're partners too.
When did you pour the footings for your current project?
The footings, there are hundreds of footings for a project that size, so we started construction right in January. If your question is pointed out as to when we were done with the superstructure.
I'm just trying to figure out when you finished the structure relative to when you discovered your robotic system wasn't going to work.
Right. We were done. I can get you the exact dates, the announcement of that. The challenges of a PT deck, and maybe I didn't go into and I don't know if it's important, but why that is so, it's virtually impossible to change. If you start saw cutting that floor, all of a sudden the tension in those strands that hold that whole building together, in addition to the columns, starts becoming very unstable. So the nature of its construction doesn't allow for changes. So we think that the project represents an unprecedented example of resourcefulness in its original implementation as well as this solution. Many people have told us that it's really a good solution. We hope you feel the same.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Okay. We will take public comment now, and if people would, kind of limit your comments to about 4 minutes, I'll kind of keep you going, okay? We could have your name and...
Hi, my name's Jim Slow. I'm the property owner closest to the project. My buildings are right to the south. I did have some comments to begin with, and then listening to his presentation and have some other things too. I kind of feel that the city's first obligation is to the neighborhood and the public and not to the developer. You know, they've gotten themselves in a pinch, but it seems to me that their pinch is going to pinch everybody else too. So keep the focus on minimizing the impact of the project, the already tight situation in the neighborhood. And about the parking, you know, it's really going to be important that these kids get their cars in a timely manner, because if they don't, they're not going to use the garage. They're going to find any other place they can find the park if they got to wait 10 minutes to get their car. And about changing this all to restaurants that serve alcohol and stuff, I mean, it could become a little Aggieville down there. And there's also a sidewalk that's proposed that goes between my properties and here from Mississippi to Indiana, and I'm really not looking forward to hundreds of drunks on game days, let alone, I mean, the cave times 10 going on up there. And I do have some concern about the traffic coming out on 11th Street, because I have a lot of my properties in the neighborhood, so I drive that quite often. And when I'm stopped at 11th Street in Mississippi heading east, there's no stop sign there. The stop sign's on the 11th Street there. And even trying to get out, there's a constant stream of cars down 11th Street now. So it concerns me, people being able to get out on that. And those are the things that concern me before I listen. And okay, I think there needs to be some verification about the actual number of cars they're going to park in here. I mean, they can say we got 642 cars, but with these 7.5 spots and people not being able to get in and out of the cars, I mean, they may end up only using a certain percentage of what they're showing. So I think even though they say they have this many, that may not actually be the case. And like these 25 spots in the yellow zone, those yellow stickers don't guarantee a spot. They're a license to hunt. So really, that could be a total nothing burger. And this urbanite thing, well, you know, I may be a Kansas boy, but I really don't want to taste downtown Chicago and Oread. You know, I mean, urbanization's great, but I think that it's really detrimental to the neighborhood and everyone else who is a property owner. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, Dale Slusser, 627 Ohio Street. I wanted to specifically register my objection to the transference of 7,679 square feet from retail sales to food and drink, and the corresponding requirement of 36 additional spaces. As it is right now, the reason we're here is that here is not able to satisfy their approved development plan nor the NRA agreement, and I don't think we should compound that problem by adding additional parking requirements. I also want to note that the solution proposed by here, and which has been submitted to the city, calls for the new parking lot on 1137 Indiana. 96 spots. If that is approved to go forward, the plan right now as written is planning to do a building or surface parking on 91% of that lot, which is so almost the entire lot will be blacktop or some type of impervious. The other thing, since Jim with here did reference the Oread plan, the Oread neighborhood plan does talk about mixed use and overlay districts. In section 4.2, I will call your attention to the statement, the overlay districts are intended to encourage development that conforms to the size, orientation, and setting of existing buildings in a neighborhood or area. Going on further, to foster development that is compatible with the scale and physical character of original buildings in a neighborhood. I think it's quite clear that that is not being followed with these suggestions. So I urge you to keep their parking level as it is, and we will move on to other meetings of the city to actually discuss the degree of negative impact on our community of demolishing a house and adding another parking lot. Thank you.
Please do.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Brown, Lawrence Preservation Alliance. You should not approve this revised development plan tonight. You should deny it, as this plan is contingent upon approvals from the Planning Commission and the Historic Resources Commission to even be viable. Your approval tonight could be seen as a tacit endorsement of the overall plan before those two bodies ever see it as an official agenda item. I know the staff says otherwise. I think that's a disingenuous thing to say. Further, regarding the bait and switch, and I will use that term, from spectacular retail to eating and drinking, which would require even more parking spaces that they don't currently have, your approval would again send an inaccurate message. The correct message to send here is parking is the problem. You need to tell the development group they need to think inside the box. Their box, their very big box that they have constructed, and redesign their interior spaces to reduce bedrooms until they can meet the required parking spaces within their own footprint. Perhaps a trade-off of multiple apartments for a smaller number of luxury condos would bring the number of bedrooms down without much reduction in income. Or maybe they come up with another solution that reduces their density. For them to look to the city and surrounding neighborhood for a solution implies that this is our problem. It's not our problem, it's their problem. Don't take action on this revised development plan or deny it. And if a denial action leads to increased pressure to demolish 1137 Indiana and construct an even bigger garage, you should call the NRA into question. Tell them they need to come back when they can provide their required parking within their own footprint as they originally promised. And I'm a Kansas boy too, like Jim. I look at these schematics. I couldn't afford to live in this development, but I wouldn't give my 1997 Villager to a valet to park in that schematic.
Thanks, Dennis. Other public comment?
Good evening, I'm Frank Jansen, 1330 New Hampshire. As was mentioned already, the yellow parking permit, that any student that buys a permit at KU is, as they say, a hunting license, because there's no guarantee that if they have a yellow permit on Mississippi Street, there'll be a place for them to park, because somebody else might already have that spot. I didn't know if there's going to be metered parking on Mississippi. On the east side of Mississippi currently is free parking. And I park there now and then because you can park there. A lot of students are parking there. It's going to be pretty full up. And even on the yellow parking, will be full up too. Two questions that the City Commission did not ask you. I don't know if they will. If a student is living in this complex, where do their visitors park if somebody comes to visit them? And the other question they didn't ask is, if you got 5 or 6 cars coming in at the same time, how do you handle that? Thanks.
Thank you. Candace?
My name is Candace Davis, and I'm a resident in the Oread neighborhood. I live just about a block away from this development at 10th and Louisiana. And I just want to say that we have in our neighborhood struggled for years to bring about stability to the neighborhood because the zoning just hasn't conformed with most of the actual structures, which are houses. The numbers before you are so complicated that honestly it reminds me of one of these extra credit math problems we got in high school that you tried to, figure out all the variables and come up with a solution. This is so confusing. The other thing is our neighborhood plan. I want to speak to that. We worked 2 years on our neighborhood plan, and indeed we did designate this particular area to be higher density. However, I would say what you see now is nothing like we would have visualized density-wise. And I want you to think about this. There's 624 bedrooms. We all know what young people, how active they are today, and they have partners. I can't imagine that these bedrooms will all be having one person in them. So there'll be a lot of visitors. So maybe there's 620 possibilities, or 24, whatever the number is, of cars. This is a high-end development. I can't imagine a lot of these young people wouldn't have cars. If you look at some of their automobiles, they're large. They're not modest. So what we have in our neighborhood as a tool has been parking. And this project, I personally don't necessarily believe this developer for proposing all of this. It was a shiny object that city commissioners apparently thought sounded really nice. I had assumed, I think I mentioned in my letter, that our Oread residents didn't get involved with this because we anticipated that the planning department and the commissioners would be following city code. And the city code would largely dictate the size of this unit. So what we have now, to me, is totally not practical. It's beyond my comprehension about automated parking. The kind of stack parking that you're looking at doesn't seem viable. We've been working for several years to try and do away with stack parking in the entire neighborhood. So I would love to see our city, our planning department, our commissioners, planning commission follow the codes that are in place, and if they're not working or if they're out, then we update them. This, to me, needs to be looked at. I think there's some good ideas here about reworking the interior to reduce the density. They're just, it's a mess, and I'm very sorry that you have to figure it out, because it would overwhelm me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comment? Any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Janet Gessner, and I currently live at 413 Vine Drive, but I did live for nearly 10 years at 11th and Ohio, and that's 3 blocks from this location. I had no idea how busy 11th Street is, but I can sure tell you from living there almost 10 years that this is an amazingly busy street. And it has cycles. It's busy, of course, during the school day, and then it seems to have there's different peaks early in the day, and then there's a peak about midday. Maybe people are running out to lunch or done with classes, I'm not sure. And interestingly enough, there's another peak that is about 2 to 3 in the morning, and that's probably almost the busiest one sometimes when the bars close and the students are coming and going up and down 11th. It's just an amazing corridor. There's also a cycle in Oread to the parking itself. This is going back a number of years, but the neighborhood actually did a very detailed and extensive parking study where they went out and wrote down license plate numbers and monitored blocks to get some feel of what was going on with the parking on the street. And they found that there was a peak in parking in the morning on the street in the Oread when students were coming to class and didn't want to have to buy permits. They parked on the streets. And then classes tended to kind of taper down in the afternoon, and so you began to see late morning to afternoon a lot of those folks leaving. And then there was usually a peak again in the evening as all residents, whether they were dorm residents or rental residents or homeowner residents, a lot of those pretty much being home or at least bringing their cars home for the evening. And then, of course, there's kind of really another peak where they go back out for the evening, some of the students, and then come back home late, even really, really late at night or early in the morning. Unbeknownst to me, until I got home this evening, my husband actually, he's been thinking about this, and we both have, and he's been concerned about this. So when he did his walk, he runs or walks usually most days, so he made a point to walk and run through this area. And I don't know if I can show you what he found or not, if I can succeed in doing this, but. And I don't know if this would work.
Megan's gonna.
Okay. Yeah, it'll work. And it may be too small to be helpful. Okay. Okay.
And just, Megan, I'll help you zoom in or work this fine. There you go.
So here, of course, is the Oread Hotel, right here, actually, and then the project in question would be in this block. The only open spaces that he saw that were within a block were these two, and this was between 2 and 3 this afternoon, which would be one of the lower parking times of the day, actually. The peak would being in the morning, generally in Oread. And he did find spots further out, as you can see. He found a total of 42, but that's going out about 3 to 4 blocks away, or even 5 in all directions, or even sometimes 6 blocks. And I'm afraid as we have increased the density here, we will be pushing cars increasingly out, so those spots will be impacting even more and more residents further out from the site. There's so many people have made comments that I had intended to make, and I agree with those. And one I had not even thought of until I heard Jim say it tonight was that if people have trouble parking there, well, which is completely what I always have seen in our neighborhood, the students will simply go and try to find spots on the street. So it's going to have a huge impact on the neighborhood. I did want to express condolences to the committee. Oh, I'm sorry. I know you've had to do a lot of cleanup of earlier projects and earlier city commission approvals. And this one is just kind of amazing to me. I was too busy at the time. I did not get involved then, and I didn't realize how intense this was, but it seems too intense for what was intended for even in high density for this neighborhood, and that's not compatible. But I really hope there's some lessons we can take away from this and look at what we can learn, that good planning is essential and that we always be realistic as we look at each situation, and that we don't get carried away by the new shiny thing like the skating rink or whatever it might be, and without being grounded in our decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Dan Dannenberg, 2702 University Drive. This will probably even affect where I live, which is west of Iowa Street. KU students, like most other wildlife, tend to be nocturnal. And the real happenings don't start until after the sun sets. What's going to happen in this humongous thing when 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 apartments decide to have a party? It's a football game weekend. Let's all celebrate. Where are the people who come to the parties going to park? Are they going to be access for them? What about graduation weekend when 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 apartments want to have parties for family and friends to celebrate graduation or escape, whichever is appropriate? Is there going to be enough parking to accommodate all of those cars? The persons who go out to the parties in the neighborhoods or other apartment complexes, when they come back to this facility at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, whichever, depends on when the kegs and the condoms and the weed run out, is there going to be enough valet or whatever it is that they're going to do? I don't know. Boy, this has turned into a real boondoggle. I know many of you are not on the commission when this was approved, and I don't know how deep the city's in with tax incentives and rebates, which the Lawrence City Commissioners seem to be addicted to. But this needs to go back to the first chart, and it needs to be redone, because this is just unbelievable.
Other public comment? Okay, back to the commission. Okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to take about 10 minutes, okay? We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Would you do me a favor? Would you go get Mr. Heffernan? Does he work? Are you working for him? Okay, thank you. This is, Diane received additional information or correspondence from Mr. Slow, and this is from the tenant, so we'll add that to the, Brandon, take care of it.
I assume that was the same, that's you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just make sure it wasn't a coincidence.
Troublemaker.
Thank you. Well, it's been about 10 minutes, so anyway, okay, we're back to the commission. Does the commission have any other questions about any of the information that's been provided?
About that commercial aspect of this, where they're changing over just to restaurant, 100% restaurant, is that my understanding?
We are not asking for any change of commercial use whatsoever. We are just providing more parking. Can staff confirm that?
It was in the memo.
It allows us to have
I was curious
a
as to
broader
why.
range of uses, but we're not asking for any zoning change or any change to our approval on that aspect.
Okay, as I said, it was information in the staff report about it, so I was wondering why.
I can explain, Commissioner Larson. With the original, with the plan that's approved today, the entitlements today, it was acknowledged that of the 13,000 square feet of commercial space, only a portion of that could be parked with the number of spaces on the original plan. The way we would practice that is as tenants come in for occupancy and building permits, we would have to analyze, which we do with any commercial project, whether or not there's enough parking to accommodate the use. So we understood that parking was limiting the number of restaurants at this project with the number of spaces that are entitled today. What the applicant is doing with the application to the south of this project is proposing additional spaces, mainly to be able to accommodate if all the commercial space was gone to restaurant use and not retail use, because they're different ratios, and restaurants are highest ratio of parking demand.
Right. Right.
It's a zoning change.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the council not wanting restaurants? Is that?
No, I
No, that's
just
not the
curious,
question.
I just was curious as to why that was in the report. And I knew I figured it had something to do with the parking ratio, but I just wanted to clarify, that's all. No.
It was new in order for us, in how we calculated the demand for parking. We were asked to calculate it based on full restaurant use.
But okay, that's, okay.
Other questions of anyone
For staff.
or staff? Whoever.
I got one for staff. Does the NRA performance agreement contain language that ensures the valet parking exists into the future, especially since they'll be contracting? Is there anything in there?
Good question, Vice Mayor. The performance agreement and the NRA plan currently don't talk about anything with valet, and the reason is, of course, that is just a new development. The NRA plan and the performance agreement do describe the project with the number of bedrooms, the approximate commercial uses there, and then also talks about a robotic parking system in that building. So there is a memo from staff that is in the commission's packet, and it will be a policy decision, I think, to look at that issue and decide if ultimately Mr. Heffernan's plan is approved, that would enable there to be more parking provided than described in the plan that's approved for the NRA. Will there be, even though it's not a robotic parking system, will that be an important issue as far as how the project is described? Because the performance agreement requires the building of the project as substantially described, and again, that description says robotic. So that will really be a policy distinction. Is it important that it be robotic or that it have at least that number of spaces or more? And that's really a policy question. When this project was originally discussed, there was a lot of discussion about the robotic parking system, and I think Mr. Heffernan had presented it as, you know, as an exciting new feature. It was going to be the first in Kansas and that kind of thing. Was it of key importance to the governing body at the time? Again, I think that would be up to those individual members to relay. It certainly describes it in the context of the description of the project, but it also has a number of other descriptors. There was a lot of discussion about the fact that it was a mixed-use project that was desirable by the governing body at the time in its location, given where it was located with KU and being able to provide that kind of density close to campus. And I think there was definitely a lot of discussion about that. So those would be my general comments. I think there isn't now any description of valet because it's not contemplated. And that would also be, I think, a policy decision if we needed to write an amendment into the NRA. That really does require us to go through a process which involves other governing bodies, because that document is approved by the county commission and is approved by the school district. So I think any amendments that would be contemplated, you know, we would need to spell out in there. But it definitely does describe a number of parking spaces.
Yeah, one of the fears that I have, you know, is of course when you think of contracts, you go through what if scenarios in your head, and so don't take offense to any of these what if scenarios. This is just me speculating. So let's just say that in 3 years, it's determined that the valet company that they're using, that they're contracting, that they'd like to cut costs in some fashion, and so they either get rid of that valet company entirely and get a new one, or just somehow revert back to self-parking. Like, we want to make sure that the NRA regulates the actual number and regular use of those spaces, you know, not just the initial existence of them, especially considering, you know, they're definitely smaller than self-parking type of spaces.
I think that the fact that it does specify the number in the description, there was a very clear reason for that. And I do think that, you know, the applicant and under the performance agreement, those spaces have to be provided. I don't think that it would be sufficient to have that number fall short as far as usable parking spaces. As to whether that would require an amendment to discuss those as being valet, or whether, you know, I think if down the road we learned that there wasn't a valet system, that they were in fact short of parking, I think that we have the ability with the performance agreement to relook at the issue, and they have to comply with that agreement in order to get the NRA. And that's something that every year we are looking at.
I think that we should definitely, I mean, bare minimum edit the NRA so that it's more appropriately reflects what we're doing now. I mean, especially with another issue that we have with a different developer, we need to definitely have our T's crossed and our I's dotted. That's really important.
Vice Mayor, if I could follow up on that.
Please.
Tying that to the NRA ties it to a shorter lifespan than the building is anticipated to have. The NRA will expire in, what, 2026? So tying the valet to the NRA is a limited duration. Is that the only thing we can tie it to?
No, and Scott can comment on
It's really a
that.
function of the fund development plan that gets approved. That's the zoning link, so
Right,
that if the
okay.
parking goes away, it's a zoning enforcement matter.
And then one of the public commenters mentioned, just because the map itself shows, 3 rows of stalls or columns of stalls, I guess you might say, doesn't mean in practice that perhaps a year from now that's actually what's being used in there. And how would we even regulate that? How would we even enforce that?
It's not policeable.
I mean, I think that's an excellent point, that if they can't get parking in an appropriate timeline for their use, which as an 18-year-old, that foresight is, well, at least for me, I'll just say, it was extremely limited and variable, that's for sure. So it is true, they're just going to go to the easiest parking, which could be on the street, could be the metered, could be, free parking that's not metered, a block or so away. I just don't know how we're going to enforce it.
Are your lease agreements, do they actually stipulate in there that they are guaranteed a parking spot?
The leasing agreements are actually 2 different things, because not all students want a car. But so they lease their apartment, their bed, and then on a separate agreement, they lease their car, because not all students want a car. Not that they don't want to pay for a parking space.
So they have to pay extra if they want to get parking privileges?
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't want to have to pay extra, then they're going to possibly park on the street?
Or not bring their car. The whole idea of the and why we got the density that we had is the green nature of how people don't want to use their car. That was the kind of the conundrum that that was discussed when this was approved. Is that we're wanting a 1-to-1 parking ratio, and yet everything in our aspirations as a community is to be more green and to use more bikes. We have, I believe, the largest, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, the largest bike holding facility, storage facility in the city. I hope people are going to be using that. We're paying for a brand new bus stop that was vetted thoroughly over months of negotiation with the city as well as the university to have that function well. We want that bus to function well. That is a differentiator to our location. The fact that you can walk to work or school, and you can bike, or you can take the bus. All those are green things, and those are all goals specifically stated in the 2020 plan of your community. We're trying to actually implement that by building this project and facilitating that type of non-modal use.
I don't see Frank here still, but just kind of for the record, I'd like you to answer. Oh, you are here. Sorry. Okay. Would you be willing to answer his question that he asked in public comment? If I'm the boyfriend of somebody living in this unit, am I allowed to park in the 600 spot garage?
If there's room, the first priority is to the resident.
But if you said that a resident has to pay extra for parking privileges, how would I do that as a boyfriend who doesn't have a lease with you?
Okay, our lease will be very specific. There has been several comments as it relates to destructive behaviors of college students. Unlike perhaps some other leases in the immediate area, we regulate behaviors through personal guarantees.
Well, I'm not going to destroy anything. I just want to...
No. So in addition, there will be very specific language in the lease that also doesn't allow double occupancy within a bedroom. That would be a gross violation of the lease.
So none of your tenants can have their girlfriend stay the night? You might tell them that when they go to sign the lease. That might be a deal breaker.
They can't stay there permanently. There's language in there that you're distinguishing between a visitor and a full-time occupant.
I'm just trying to figure out if I want to go sleep, cohabitate with my girlfriend, where do I park my car? That's all I'm asking. I'm not going to destroy anything. I'm not going to be there permanently.
Sure. Well, you have within our project, you have 3 options. You have one, at least as conceived, 106 spots on the street. If we have room within our garage in the building, or we hope to have an ancillary parking facility with an additional 96.
So I can park in that garage?
If it's full, but if it's not full. But I mean, the committee is concerned that we don't have enough parking in our building. So we have 81% capacity within our building. If it's less than 81% and there's room in the building, yes, the answer is yes.
So if I lease a parking space, is there an identifier of some kind that I can put on my car that allows me to park in that garage?
There'll be something that we provide you that actually allows the garage door to open when you drive there up to close to it.
Okay, so
Desponder.
this guest is not going to have that, right?
Well, these are very specific operational questions. So like a valet, this is not a unique problem to this building. We are hiring professionals. So if it's the resident that's stating that I'm going to have a guest there and make arrangements for that, that could be one scenario that we identify that actually. The one we don't want is someone just meandering through the halls of the building. When they're coming through the lobby, we want to know what they're doing as a safety consideration and security consideration of the building. So there's multiple aspects to that. The bottom line is to how we solve all of this. The number one guiding principle of all of these operational policies yet to be received. Because let's say we only have 50% demand. All of a sudden, the options that are possible are significantly different than if there's 100% occupancy. So the number one guiding principle, though, is us to be the facilitator of a good experience where people like staying here, they'll want to renew, and they talk about how great the experience is. That's what will make us successful. That will be the number one guiding principle of how we operate our building. So as it relates to all these very specific parking issues, we're going to do the best thing for the project. So, and the residents, they're intertwined. So I hope I'm answering your question.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be very specific. I'm just trying to help you see that if you're renting to college students, the vast majority of 18-year-olds are not married.
Well,
and I would dare say the vast majority of 18-year-olds are
as an example,
looking.
What happens? There's a huge parking problem in the entire neighborhood. What happens in that scenario where there's no space within a 2-3 block radius of a house that someone wants to sleep in? What do they do then?
Yeah. Okay.
Park in the backyard? Okay. All right. Very good.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Heffernan? I have one.
Yes.
How much was that robotic system going to cost?
I don't have the figure on that. The thing that I know for sure, and we can represent, is that this solution in totality is more expensive than the robotic. That I can tell you, and we can show you the numbers. I just don't want to misrepresent anything right now.
I think it was on the original sheet, though, a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you got a better memory than I.
And the only company that builds these is the one that you were, the Boomerang company?
As we are learning, the promise of robotic parking is great. This project would be, to the best of my knowledge, would have been the largest robotic parking garage in the United States, or one of the very close, if it's not the, very close to that. In a technology that it's failing and not delivering on the experience that's desired, that everyone's saying that it will, and much smaller applications, it puts the project in a worse condition than we are today.
Well, the reason that I bring that up is I do know that the discussion that we had a couple years ago with the NRA, based on what you had said, and you've been right along with what you said, yeah, it's going to be the biggest and probably the most expensive of the robotic systems, is that how much of that cost allowed commissioners to make up their mind on the amount of the NRA given. And I just bring that up now, because it's you had said that it was going to be one of the greatest expenses that you were going to face in this. So, anyway.
One of the greatest, I'm not sure I said that. It's a $74 million building. The NRA goes through a lot of detail as it relates to what we're going to build. And ironically, or to our detriment, we built exactly what we said we were going to build. Exactly. The part that we're missing is the software and the system that actually makes that all work. And now we're going to something that we know will work because it's done everywhere. in any urban area. There's tons of companies that do this. This we know we can deliver. We thought we could deliver the other one. Obviously, in hindsight, it was a bad idea.
I got one question. You've built the garage to fit this robotic system. If sometime in the future the robotics get better or they get the kinks worked out, the company's no longer bankrupt, can you retrofit it back to your garage?
The modifications that we're actually making to the garage are quite nominal. As staff represented, it involves the induction of a new drive curb cut and 2 garage doors on the 11th Street elevation. And then there were elevator shafts, if you see on your drawing, that we're planning on filling in. But as it relates to ventilation and lighting, with the exception of lighting at the entrances to this new entrance, there's virtually no other changes to the garage. So as a hypothetical, that's certainly a possibility. At what time? It's an imponderable as to when. This is such an important, integral part of this project, this parking, as we all know, that we're not going to make the same mistake twice. We're going to be more than sure that what we're proposing is going to work. And right now, we can't have any confidence in that.
Are you adding, I know you're going to the food and restaurant idea. Will there be any retail, or is it just going to be food, restaurant?
We do not know. We do not know for sure any of the uses at this time. We have the opportunity to increase parking, which apparently everyone wants. We just want, we're trying to deliver what we said is the best retail, commercial space, whatever use that is interested in coming to this location. So now with more parking, all uses are possible. So that's what we're providing.
Okay, anything else?
I just have a question for staff.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
So the NRA, was it 10 years and 85%? What was it?
Correct.
Is there a possibility to perhaps reduce the percentage in some fashion?
Well, Commissioner, I would say that the agreement was approved by all the bodies. If the agreement is and the plan is revisited, I suppose there are opportunities to change the plan as it stands currently. That again is a policy decision that I think this body would need to make, and then that agreement and the plan have to be approved by all 3 of the bodies. So any changes to it, I think, would have to go through that process.
May I speak? You made a very good observation. If the concern of the body is that we will have integrity as it relates to the continuous valet operation of our garage, I think there's perhaps other mechanisms that will maybe not be quite so time-consuming as having 3 more public meetings on that subject to protect the city and the veracity of our commitment to this valet. The garage was intended for valet service, machinery or human. We're using human. We will somehow figure. I'm not smart enough to figure out what that is right now, but there's a commitment on our part that we will run this garage, not just for the duration of the NRA, but beyond that, as a human valet garage.
I got one question. The parking that you would charge students to park there, is it more expensive to park under your garage than it would be if they bought a parking pass?
I'm not conversant with all the costs of that. There again, we're trying to balance the whole thing. We want to make these kids, the convenience that we provide here will be a compelling attribute to the building. Once they get the use of human valet service and their capacity to say, I want my car in 10 minutes, and it's there, it will be not only a great thing, it will be an amenity to the building, and it's something that we will facilitate. It's very important to us that we deliver on this parking. So we will price it accordingly as it relates to that, but you know, performance is a function of cost. So this valet system, if it's going to perform, we got to make sure that it's up to the expectations of the kids. It's a lost leader as an idea, you know?
Yeah, I'm just concerned that there's a separate charge for the parking, and I can just see the potential for students trying to cut costs, you know, students as they do, as I did when I was a student, and parking elsewhere, just parking their car down in the neighborhood.
The nature of what these kids are buying is the whole experience. You know, if they're, it's not consistent with what they're buying, you know? It's like buying a brand new Mercedes and putting it on the public street. It usually doesn't happen, right? You're going to be living in something that is fully furnished, has all these amenities, unlike any other building, and then you're going to say you don't want to park your car.
But you know, the parking is not a part of it. You got to pay separate.
But what about if I don't bring a car because I have access to the bus, or my roommate and I are sharing? The whole idea was to have walkability, right? So
Yeah.
the density that Diane mentions, the reason why the city wanted it, the reason why the university wants it, is to increase the foot traffic in and around the university. So we're wanting people to, and yet we can't get rid of our car because they got to use their car. So I mean, it's a little, that's what urban living is like. That's what a mixed-use development does, is it encourages walkability or using your bike or using public transportation. We will provide the cars, but I think at the end of the day, if we're doing our job right, these kids will store their cars here. They won't necessarily use them. If we're delivering groceries to them, they can get their laundry done if they want it. They can go out to eat downstairs. They can walk to downtown. They can walk to school. The nature of the uses will be certainly less than if they had to commute from inside and every day bring their car into that neighborhood. That's a huge benefit to this project. None of these kids have to drive their car to school. It would seem very unlikely that someone would hop in their car to go a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, right? When the bus will take them there for free, and it's right outside their front door. So, I mean, I think it will work like something that you know, I mean, mass transportation in major metros are a phenomenal thing.
Okay. Any other questions?
Got a question for Scott.
Okay.
Can you comment on the feasibility of the 7.5-foot wide parking places stacked, however deep they're stacked?
Yeah, it is certainly tight. I'd rather the applicant comment on the feasibility. It misses our code, or some codes, by 6 inches. It misses our code by greater than 6 inches wide. And again, I have seen codes as small as 8 feet wide for compact cars. And our code requires 8.5 feet wide for a typical parking lot, whether it's in a garage or on a surface lot. So that gives enough width of a car to park conveniently and open doors and get out and the like. So
I can address that. That's why it's very important. We don't have any issue at all saying that this is going to be a valet parked garage. Part of the metrics of a standard parking stall implies use from both sides. This will only be one valet driver operating one car. So maneuvering those cars and parking them accordingly, there will not be public use of this garage. So someone that's not familiar with all the intricacies of the garage will not be parking those. So these will be professional drivers. They're licensed and they work for professional companies that do this for a living. And they don't want door digs.
I was going to say,
These residents will not want
it's
door
part of the
digs.
experience. You don't buy a Mercedes and park it downtown. I also don't let you park my new Mercedes in a 7.5-foot spot.
But I guess the follow-up question for Scott is, what happens if, you know, the city becomes aware that they're not actually configuring the parking lot the way and using it the way they've said they would?
yeah, that becomes an enforcement issue, a zoning enforcement issue. And they, if we get reports from tenants or from others, from the.
How do we ever know? We're not allowed in the guy's garage. You just said that that's the whole security.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough to enforce. We don't actively enforce any of our valet systems, but if we get reports and we investigate, we would have the ability to investigate, certainly, and request a presence in the garage, and if found to have, if we step in and find it half full and we have evidence showing that tenants are parking out in the neighborhood, that's something that we will need to act on. And that's true of any complex in the city.
Well, we can what-if this thing all night long. Bottom line of the deal is we're being asked to approve a valet parking, approve a revised final development plan with a reduction of parking by 69 spaces. We're going to base that on a valet parking system of which we don't have in the code.
Correct.
We're also going to be being asked to approve tandem parking, of which we don't have a whole lot in the code. We do have some, I guess, as you said. And we're also being asked to reduce the size of parking spaces in this entire project, of which it sounds to me like that there's real concern here by doing this. Mr. Heffernan, you have a real problem.
Mayor, we're not reducing the spaces. They were narrow to begin with. They were tandem spaces to begin with. None of those are changes to our plan. None. The operation of the garage is changing. That's it.
Are we changing the size of any of the spaces as I see them drawn on this thing?
There's a difference in the operation, the ability for humans to get in and out of the car where the robots could just slip them in. So.
Right. Okay, so all of that said, you know, you do have a plan, I guess, as you're going to proceed with trying to ask for approval of your structure next door and is going to apply, you know, you're going to be asked to show at that time that you're going to end up with more parking. That's not what's being considered tonight. The choices that we have is to either approve or deny, approve with conditions,
Or defer with direction.
or defer with whatever the direction may be, and which part of that direction could be wait until, you know, the rest of this comes forward, correct?
Could be, if you'd like to see this all as a complete development application.
Okay. Well, one of the concerns that I have is by not having a code, you know, to approve something, that really concerns me, because I think we're opening the door for all kinds of things, you know, to happen, and that there's people who are saying, well, they got it, you know, why can't I do it? And I think
This was approved with no robotic code. It's not approved with a code.
Okay. Your opinion. And so that's where we are. I think that we've been very good under the agreements that we have. I think the commission, you know, made a decision on the 85% NRA based on all kinds of things. You know, I heard the parking a lot. Maybe I have different bad hearing. I don't know. But I think that, you know, I just can't see changing the, or changing this final development plan. I really can't. I think.
Hey, Mike, can I read something from the original minutes?
Sure, please.
So the question came up in the original minutes, and I happen to know because I sat right there when it happened. And I recognize you from the commission. I don't recognize anybody else. The question came up, are we really going to incentivize an apartment complex? Because that's not something we do in Lawrence, Kansas. And I think as a group we've agreed that's not something we do. As someone who runs rental units, that's not something I would ever expect we do. So your response was this, and I'm reading from the minutes. The NRA had been used several times, and those examples didn't involve any mixed-use projects or unique retail, and yet they were handcuffed by what had been done in the past as it related to the utilization of the NRA as a tool. The NRA language was very specific, and he read in the paper about apartments and a precedent and would like to be on the record very clearly that this was not an apartment project, but a mixed-use project, which was extremely different. One of the differences was that it involved a $17 million parking structure, and there wasn't a parking structure in this community with a $17 million parking structure. The other reason was because it also had retail. Whoever wrote the NRA and this idea to attract unique retail had an understanding as to the power of what actual sales dollars meant to the city's coffers. So the two things that make this not an apartment project, we don't have anymore. We have no more unique retail because we don't know what's going in there. We have no idea what's going in there, and we no longer have a $17 million parking structure. The two answers that were given as to why this should be approved no longer exist. That's from you on the public minutes.
Are we, I mean, with regard to the issue of, is the issue the NRA or is the issue the parking? Because those are two different things.
I think the issue is that you have a $5.7 million incentive from the city, and we're asking you to uphold the agreement.
That's all it is.
Right. The agreement is very specific as it relates to how it is interpreted. It specifically states in the agreement that it's a loose interpretation, as long as the purpose of it is ascertained. We are building a 454,000 square foot building, and it says it has to be substantially as we presented. You're saying an operational, the operation of how we park the cars goes to that level? On a 454,000 square foot building with the enormity of the complexity of actually executing this project? On a project that has 6 stories of fall on the same building? There are very few developers that could actually even execute this project. We have substantially delivered everything and then some. We are even offering to give you more parking than is required. What we're asking for is completely consistent with the 2020 plan, which is exactly what is guiding this new commission, the 2020 plan. We're using the exact land use and the highest density the city wanted, that they wanted. And now all of a sudden it's a bad idea on a project that takes years to implement? So the performance agreement is very specific as to how that document is construed. The nature of that is it's trying to describe something that's in the future with thousands and thousands of details. We have substantially delivered what we promised. And we're still trying to do that today. I just hope that you guys allow us to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Back to the commission.
I want to see a map that has stalls that are wider that would accommodate one valet person getting in and out of the car to move it. Because from what I understand, this is still the same width as the robotic parking. Am I understanding that wrong? Perhaps I am.
I'm not sure. It's very comparable.
It's comparable in width?
They're wider, but the restricting factor in the robotic garage parking layout was the structural columns of the building. They remain the restricting factor on the width of the space. There are 2 size spaces in that garage. Some that are 8 feet and some that are 7.5. If you look at the proportion of smaller cars on the road today, there are more small cars, particularly in this age demographic, than there are large. Having this, I mean, we got here today because we needed to partner with the city. We still need to partner with the city. This location is a very prominent location directly across from Memorial Stadium at the entrance of the university. This building will be one of the most remarkable buildings in your community if you allow us to finish it. That's what we're asking you to do today. This is a very unique conundrum for all of us.
You know, I feel a little snickered, I have to admit.
Okay.
Because we had in the fall or the late summer, I don't remember when it was, when we started learning that the robotic parking, that was not gonna work. And so that you guys had a new proposal that provided more parking with the lot to the south. And like I said at the time, it was just like, whew, thank God, but now we should have been having this conversation several months ago when the size of the building was, as you said, when in your speech, that is now almost substantially complete. And so now we are forced And the only real solution that I've seen someone say is to reduce the density in the building. Parking is really important. And as someone that actually became really involved in politics because of the uses incentives, and when you look at the people that are sitting up here, the reason they're all different was because of what we're talking about, that a lot of them were voted out. So I understand that you feel like you had an agreement with the city, but this is definitely not the same people sitting here that were then. And you really need to recognize that, because it doesn't help when you get really upset that you feel like the city is reneging on their agreement when it's actually you guys that are, and we were elected because of that. I'm getting a little upset, so I might not be eloquent, but you cannot get upset when you're standing behind there when we were voted in because of the creation and the approval of your NRA.
You started your discussion with what we presented to you and the mayor. What we presented to you and the mayor at that meeting was that we were going to have human valet. Is that in dispute?
I did not know that. I did not know that.
No, I don't.
I did not know that.
We had several other people in the meeting. Human valet.
I know we talked about a solution where where you were going to pursue.
Human valet. We had human valet office.
I didn't know it was stacked, tandem, whatever
We didn't talk
words
about
we're
details
describing,
of the
5D,
ballet.
3D, what I did not know.
We
any of
presented
that.
drawings at that time that represented materially what we're presenting today. 3D, I can produce all of that. There has been no. I know that I'm in a situation where there's been a lot of bad circumstances with the development community, but our actions to date have been nothing but forthright and true. If they had not gone bankrupt, had the technology not proven to be not what they were saying it was, we would deliver the robotic garage. But we can't.
When I
So
looked
now
at
what
that
do we do?
map-
So we're trying to work together like we did since the beginning. And although the politics of this community has changed, we're still dealing with the politics. I mean, we're still dealing with the community. We're still trying to serve the people that we're trying to serve when we started this building. Those students interested in living here. So, and we're trying to take consideration of the neighborhood. We've already had a neighborhood meeting as it relates to the 1137 building. We've got a lot of good input and have revised that. I think what we're going to be providing when you see the totality of what we're talking about is it even makes more sense than what we're presenting now. It's actually a better solution than we had before.
With the maps that we were shown in the summer or the fall,
We were shown 1137. That's what I saw. We showed.
In addition, we showed we showed it all. We showed the configuration for the first and second floor.
I'm not gonna argue.
well, I don't have it
Well, we had other
because
people in the meeting, so
Because
it's
you
all right if
wanted
you don't
us to
remember.
turn it back in so that the media wouldn't get hold of it and perhaps misconstrue what you were trying to do. So we did not keep those maps. I don't
Right.
know if planning kept them.
Planning saw them immediately after that meeting. If the concern is that we showed something different than we're showing you now, that is not the case.
I'm trying to relate to you my feeling that when I see someone getting really upset with us, then I'm going to tell you why I'm really upset with you.
Well,
And this is
I'm
my
sorry that
reason. This is my reason. It's a valid
When
reason.
someone says something that's not correct, though, that's where I just want to make sure but I understand.
That is the issue I'm having with you right now.
Okay, guys. Enough. Back to this commission.
One of the things that concerns me is this is not dedicated parking for the building, and they have to pay for it on top of that.
Correct. I have a real problem with that.
Okay.
I have a real problem with that. There's no really guarantee they can have parking unless they pay extra money. You know, as far as partnerships go, I know the city has a partnership with you, and we're partnership back and forth. But we also have a partnership with the neighborhood. And we need to protect that neighborhood and the parking that is limited as it is now.
We are always going to have the tenants pay.
Wait a minute, we're back to the commission,
Pardon me, excuse me.
okay?
Yeah, that was just, talk about partnerships. We have a neighborhood that we're also a partner with.
Okay. Scott, were you gonna bring something up?
I was just going to state my recollection that that part of the original approval hasn't changed. They were going to lease units and parking separate, as I understood the conclusion of that. So I just wanted to draw that into the discussion. But Mayor, I might suggest that if you have some discussion point or direction on some of these elements that you want to provide, that you want staff and the applicant to work on and present something different back to you, that may be a prudent step, because if the robotic parking is truly just a dead issue, then we have to find out where the balance is and what standards we're going to impose on this project.
Yeah, I was just going to ask the commission, you know, the question is the valet parking that is proposed, okay, as it's shown right here, does that meet the intent of being able to provide parking on that side?
Well, that's the question.
Well, I
That is-
think there's an even
Okay.
easier question, and even easier for the developer to respond to. I don't know that, I mean, certainly the 7.5 versus 8.5 is a discussion you can have, valet versus open, just open community, separate parking, whatever. But the bigger issue to me is I feel like the tension here is that the developer feels that we're trying to renege on our agreement, and we feel that they're trying to renege on theirs. And I think, for me at least, the reality is I want this project to succeed, but my expectation is that it succeed within city code. And so I don't think we need to talk about 7.5 versus 8-foot spaces. I think we need to talk about the city code requires X number of spaces. Do you provide X number of spaces? The answer right now is no. So our answer needs to be no. We just got done with the findings of fact where Stuart said very eloquently, he said, look, if we want to change something, let's change it, but we're not moving forward with a proposal that violates our code or our master plan. If we accept this, we are moving forward with something that violates our code. If we want this to succeed, the number of parking spots have to match city code.
So then the only other thing that he has to do is, does he continue to proceed down, the path of trying to find the additional parking in an adjacent site?
Reduce density of the
Or
building.
reduce
Yeah,
density?
reduce density.
If he can get spots to match the code, then it meets our code. If that means an adjacent building, if that means reducing density. But as it stands now, it does not meet our code.
Right.
It is significantly short.
Okay.
And we can debate all day and night whether or not our code is, whether we should have 100% or a 75%, but
Yeah, we've been
we're not
through that.
changing
We
the
don't,
law,
yeah.
we're applying the law. That's our job.
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right. We have no code that supports it.
None.
So, do we want to give staff direction in working with the developer?
My direction would be
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
project to meet code.
Okay?
Reduce density or find parking.
Okay?
Seems like he would have, if they found parking, they would have brought it to us tonight.
Well, I don't think
I know
they
that's
can
separate.
because
Yeah,
it has started the process, right?
Right.
Correct. And my question for clarity is to meet the code, because we didn't have a code for the robotic parking necessarily. It was uncharted territory for us and a very unique system, and so we worked and believed that it would work. The applicant believed it would work, and we worked very closely with their designers to make sure that it was meeting building code and the number of spaces met the zoning code. So to clarify, the direction is meeting the standards of the code would remove the valet, though there is some precedent in the city for that. Remove the valet, apply all of the two-way traffic aisle standards, all the 8.5 foot space standards, no tandem parking. It would significantly reduce the number of spaces in the building. The approach that the applicant took to this point was to try to modify from robotic to valet and recapture or keep, I guess, as much parking as possible, which a valet system in many instances can do because tandem parking is a pretty common element in valet parking. So I just wanted to clarify whether valet is off the table for the discussion we have with the developer, and we're applying the code in terms of we're going to get a typical parking lot designed by our code, or whether it's just a few of those components that are causing some trouble with it.
In seeing your recommendation, you see a strong similarity between the human valet versus the robotic, correct? Except for the number of spaces, the ones that are lost.
Yeah, I think there is, save for a couple of spots we've identified that aren't convenient for valet attendants, but maybe able to be parked for them. And the 7 and the under 8-foot width, if that's a debatable width for valet spaces, and if we trust that that can be done practically and not cause the garage to go unparked and then push cars out into the neighborhood. That's the concern I see with that. So if the direction is we support valet parking, we think it can work in the situation as a modification to the robotic parking, but we don't believe that it's practically going to be parked at 7.5 foot wide. We'd like to see all the spaces 8 feet wide. That clarifies some of that direction.
But we would have to change the code so it would allow for valet parking, correct?
Well, again, what we're doing is granting some waivers, and in the plan development overlay, the commission has some authority to grant reductions in parking. And so, from a very technical level, we didn't have the authority to do the robotic parking, but it was something that was a very unique system and a component that we were going to join the developer in the experiment, if you will, as that gets kind of introduced into the Lawrence community.
I guess I'd be interested in you identifying the similar valet codes in other jurisdictions, in other cities.
Okay.
Since we don't have any experience with that, I think there are other communities that do. I think it'd be very useful for us to consider their experience.
Sure.
And their codes.
Okay. But as Matt, Commissioner Herbert brought up a second ago, it has got to meet code. So,
I mean, that's just a bare minimum. And I mean, the reality of the situation is we're housing 18 to 22-year-olds.
right.
If you've got 624 beds, you're going to have 400 boyfriends sleeping over.
Yeah, and from a numbers standpoint, if you take away the width issue, it does meet code, but at a reduced use. As you see it from our memo, the project isn't parking all of the uses of the mixed-use building. It's only parking a portion of the residential use. And we account for visitor parking by code. Now,
Right.
we can debate, too, whether the code is providing the right number of visitor spaces for a student housing project, but it's the same code we apply to all of our student housing projects.
Okay. So, do you need any other specific direction? Okay, do we want staff to be able to work with this developer on valet parking system and being able to meet the code?
Yes.
Being able to allow for tandem parking, those kind of things? Is that the goal of the
Yes,
commission?
I'm fine with that.
As long as it meets the code?
As long as it meets the width for the spaces so that they are practically able to be used. I hear that's the value that we're aiming for. We don't want spaces on paper that don't meet practical use.
Right.
Okay.
In the end, all I want is written in the code book so that somebody can read it, so that everybody has the same opportunity.
That's a different
Well, you know,
issue.
well, it may be, but I'm just telling you that I think people's going to come forward and say, you know, we've done it once. What's it take to do that? So I think that we need to be very careful of that.
We'll
So,
address that for you.
okay.
Do we need to amend the NRA to say that we're using different parking if that does come to happen?
Well,
That's
that's another deal. This, you know, in the end, this still has to pass with all of the other things that are involved with it, so. Okay. So the item before us then is, you know, is Scott's got direction that, you know, that he would be able to work on with the developer. The adjoining properties, you know, and that process has begun, and it's going to be back to us some date in the future,
It will be back to you in a couple months.
okay?
It will be to you in a couple of months.
Okay.
And again, we're not deciding any of that. No foregone conclusions on approval or denial or disapproval of that particular, that one has a different set of challenges, in my opinion.
Yeah, Let's don't clutter. Let's don't clutter.
I think what we have to how to view this is that this would provide, what we really need to be looking at is a situation and a determination that allows the building to sit for short to medium period of time, hopefully not much more than a short period of time, in a state where it's parked to some level of the use, but not fully. That's how I have viewed it, because I don't know that, I think Jim feels like if he gets his zoning entitlements for a parking structure off-site, he'll try to very quickly catch up that project with delivering this project for an August move-in date. If that doesn't happen, then there's going to be some time period there that the interim state is a partially occupied building.
So are you saying we need to do option 1 through 3? Pick one?
Well, ultimately, you will still have those options coming back to you, yes.
Do we need to do that tonight?
That
or
would be
just in the
good to
future?
get some direction. That way Jim hears it and I hear it, and we can both work down the same way. From the discussion, meeting the standards of the code is to park it fully to the, so we'll have partial occupancy. We'll withhold occupancy of whatever use isn't accommodated with the parking.
Yeah, because if you get code that changes the width of the parking stalls, then that's going to change your numbers.
That's going to change the number. It's going to reduce that even further, the occupant level that can't be accommodated by the parking.
Right, because number 1 here spells out specifically 23 bedrooms, but we can't really say that right now.
That will change.
Yeah.
Correct. The options just represent whether we withhold occupancy to, that the use has to be accommodated with parking, or it can be reduced from parking standards, or this idea that they get parking in an interim way from KU. But what I've heard tonight is go with option 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, don't do that. Don't try to guess or pick and choose what those numbers are going to be on what you're going to withhold occupancy for. I think that we need to deal with this revised plan, number 1. I think Matt makes a great point. This does not meet code. Scott, you have some direction. You can talk with Mr. Heffernan and try to work this deal out. But I think rather than pick one of these 3, we deal with this revised plan tonight. Does it meet what our expectations are and what our code says? And as Commissioner Herbert said, no, it does not.
So you're saying that we should outright deny it?
Yeah, and then you can go back. You have the right to be, or the opportunity to be able to visit with Mr. Heffernan based on the items that we just gave you. You have the right to talk to him and work with this valet parking system,
Right.
the width of those spaces. It allows the rest of this project to come back forward, or the next door project to go through the process, and that we deal with that, so that they can ultimately meet the deal. I just don't feel comfortable in picking one of these tonight.
No, I think the options we're talking about is that you are directing us to only provide occupancy when it gets to that part of the construction to the uses that are accommodated with the parking, once we understand what that parking is finally. So what I would recommend is we defer this item, that we redraw the spaces to meet code and work out the code standard issue, and bring it back for a decision on whether or not this revised final development plan can stand on its own by only accommodating part of the building's uses that were originally approved.
Okay, and so how long is that deferral then? Any idea?
I would think it would be, a few weeks at least.
May I speak again? I apologize. This is a very unique situation where you want us to succeed, but you need to have us give us the opportunity to succeed. We have built a garage that facilitates valet parking. You didn't have a valet parking code, robotic or otherwise, for this project, and yet it was approved. Now we're before you saying that we're still going to have valet parking, and now it's human, and you still don't have a code. So we're just asking you to give us the same as we did before, and we're working to the best of our ability to actually come up with the rest of the count. But this is a building that you can't modify these column spacing. The nature in which it was designed was for valet parking. We are perfectly fine with providing that we will use human valet parking in perpetuity for this building. It's designed that way. It only can function that way. You didn't have a code for that when you approved it. You allowed us to start construction, build this building, and now you're saying have it meet code? It can't. It didn't to begin with. That's the conundrum we find ourselves in.
Mayor, I understand the direction
Okay.
that you're looking for.
So are we going to defer it or deny it?
It's the choice of the commission.
I think Scott's asked us to defer that.
Okay. Deferral?
Okay with that?
I'm going to defer.
Okay. Okay. And entertain a motion then to defer this item.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you for all your time. Thank you.
A motion made and seconded to defer this item to wait for further information coming from staff and the applicant. Was made by Vice Mayor Soden, seconded by Commissioner Larson. Anything else? Okay, all in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is to consider adopting on first reading ordinance number 9184, authorizing the issuance of $14.5 million industrial revenue bonds for the Pioneer Ridge project, a senior independent living facility near Harvard Road and Wakarusa Drive. Diane, oh,
Give him 30 seconds. I just don't want to ruin it this way, pulling it out at the wrong time. Sorry. Hey, Scott. Hey, Sandy, could you help me release this disc without ruining it? Sorry. You know how to do it? Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks.
Mayor Kevin Drew is going to cover this this evening, but as she's getting ready, would just want to mention that she's transitioned to another regular full-time position with the city. She has been an intern in our office for a couple of years now, and was recently appointed the accreditation manager in the fire department. So I'm going to make sure that you all knew that, and we miss Kevin in our office, but we're really happy to be able to have her stay with the city.
Congratulations.
We'll give you the code later.
Thanks, Diane. Just before I get started, I just want to introduce some people that were here also in regards to the project. So Gary Anderson and Kevin Wendy, got it. We're here for our bond counsel and represent our bond counsel, and Curtis Peterson. And is that Lee Edenheim? Okay, and he's the vice president of operations, right? So I'm sorry I didn't bring any presents with me, but I promised to bring you a present of a short presentation. So just to recap, on February 10th, 2015, the City Commission approved a resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for the Pioneer Ridge Independent Living Project. The resolution of intent, like stated in the memo, is a strong signal that the city intends to eventually issue the bonds for the project. You may have already noticed, this also enables the city to provide the applicant with a certificate, a sales tax exemption certificate. You may have already noticed that the construction of the facility has already begun. Most of what has been completed at this point, I haven't driven by it, but I talked to Curtis earlier, is just the framing and the foundation of the building. So the applicant has used their certificate thus far for those purposes. So the next steps in this process is to authorize the issuance of the bonds through what is before you tonight as in a bond ordinance. To give you a little history of the applicant, since only you, Mayor, were on the commission at that time in February, Pioneer Ridge Health and Rehabilitation and the assisted living facility are the two already in existence, and they opened in Lawrence in 2001. The independent living facility component, which is this project, is located just adjacent to these two existing facilities, and what they're really hoping to create is sort of a campus-like environment. This will allow the residents to move in what is called a care continuum as their needs change. And the applicant is Midwest Health, Inc., and they're based in Topeka, and they own around 50 other facilities in the Midwest, including one in Olathe, Bloom Living, and Salina, Eagle Crest, and those are just some in the state. So the project plans to create about 19 full-time jobs, and I checked with the applicant, and that's still true. And since this was in February, I checked in to see if that was still true, and 76 individual suites. And the start date or the open date has moved a little bit since last time. I think it was planned in the spring, but now it's planned to open by the end of the year. While there are no dedicated affordable housing units, Pioneer Ridge participates in Medicaid as part of the skilled nursing component of the facility. The city in the past has issued, I just wanted to refer to these the screen right here, which shows some of the other projects the city has approved related to senior living, dated back to 1975. They have issued bonds for market rate senior housing projects, and that would be the Brandon Woods project, including many others like Presbyterian Manor and Newmont House. The project supports some of the goals from the Retiree Attraction and Retention Task Force and Horizon 20 that encourage the development of a variety of different housing, including this idea of the continuing care communities where people can move throughout depending on their needs. The project also meets many of the eligibility criteria in the city's economic development policy and also some of the preferred criteria. Since it's a standalone IRB request, it does not require a cost-benefit analysis. The property, which is located at 1000 Wakarusa Drive, is still subject to property taxes. And I also have a chart here estimating the sales tax revenues each jurisdiction would forgo if the IRBs are issued. This has been updated since February, reflecting the new sales tax rates. And so in total, Pioneer Ridge is expected to save about $544,000. And so at this point, the city staff would recommend approving on the first reading the ordinance number 9184, authorizing the issuance of $14.5 million in industrial and up to $14.5 million, and the various documents in connection with the issuance of the bonds. And Gary and the applicants are also willing to answer any questions. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Gary.
Okay. Questions of Kevin?
Yeah. Kevin, on the chart that you've got there, we're showing the county 1%. What portion of that do you anticipate the city would receive as its share of the 1% county tax?
Yeah, 67% or something around.
So essentially, what the city is foregoing is the 83,000, almost 84,000, plus essentially more than half, up to 2/3 of the 54,000.
I think it's about 110,000 altogether, right?
Yeah.
115,111.
Yeah, this bond.
So I think I'd like for us to update our formulas for showing this for future IRBs, because it really doesn't reveal to me what the cost or what the foregone revenue to the city is.
You mean the total of the
I think the
115,000?
breakdown there, and looking at the
It's right
chart,
down there, it's the 115?
Yeah,
Right.
so where it
Okay,
has,
so it's down at the bottom,
It's
where it
83,
has the
yeah.
county there,
yeah.
so there it is.
So it's
the-
divided down below, and I just.
Yeah, and
didn't see
it's
yeah.
kind of in that shaded, can you point that out, Kevin?
Yeah, it's down at the
Here
bottom
it says-
part, yeah.
And it says, also says, it breaks down that county, city portion.
So that accounts for it right there. Okay.
Right, I was gonna say.
I was focused on that upper part, and I thought, wow, that's, so it's really 19 for the county instead of 54, and 115 instead of 83 for the city.
That was-
So you've done it,
Yeah.
it's just, I didn't look that far down.
Yeah, it's just kind of a little bit confusing. I know the track
Yeah.
more, but.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think Britt had, this is kind of based on her template of how she does it, and she had
Yeah.
actually updated it.
Yeah,
So I tried to use that, but yeah, maybe
No,
we can-
you've disclosed what I asked for, it's just I didn't see it, so thank you.
Okay. Other questions of Kevin? Okay, Kevin, thank you. Good report. And congratulations on the new job.
Oh, thank you.
Any public comment on this item? Okay, back to the commission. Well, just be right up front with, this is a great project for our community, and you know, this allows, the company to expand into independent living, and you know, Pioneer Ridge has got great track record in Lawrence, Kansas, so I think that this is, super opportunity. Here again, I think that they just provide great service, and I think it's a good investment, so, anyway.
It has full-time jobs and it has an affordable housing component to it. I'm not going to sit here and say that if I would have approved it initially, but this one doesn't give me heart palpitations like the Eldridge did. So I'm happy to continue approving it.
Does it have affordable housing? Did it?
The Medicare.
Oh, the Medicaid.
Or Medicaid.
That's not part of this project, though, is it?
The Medicaid, well,
The existing part and in the existing project.
The first two phases.
But this phase doesn't have that.
no,
Correct, that's our understanding from the
Yeah.
applicant's comments last week.
but it still allows somebody to go through the process of living until, that time comes that, that's part of the living need, so, anyway. Gentlemen, you have anything extra?
I see this as a kind of a missed opportunity. With the standalone RVs, I think we have an opportunity to try to get some payments in lieu of taxes, specifically for affordable housing, like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think Pioneer Ridge is great. I don't have a problem with what they're doing. It's just, I see this as a missed opportunity, and I would like to make a consistent effort to, fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund with this kind of opportunity.
Okay. Matt, you have anything?
I think that's a good point. We spent a lot of time in the last 6 or 7 or 8 months cleaning up, is how I'd refer it. I'm really looking forward to a time when we can actually start on some of our own ideas and projects and quit sweeping the floor of a year ago. But we made a commitment to them,
Sure.
and I think we honor that tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with Stuart. Would have been a nice opportunity to maybe explore that a little bit further, but I also agree that we need to figure out some sort of consistent way to deal with these incentives down the road for us.
Okay.
Here, Mike.
Sure.
I just wanted to make a comment that as you all have discussed the industrial revenue bond policy and some policy direction generally to us, I also visited with Gary Anderson this morning just about some of the mechanisms that we might consider, and I know that you all were interested in payments that kind of defray the city's efforts in these projects. So he had talked with me a little bit about a number of cities that have origination fees, and that'll be something as we're looking at application fees and other things related to these projects in the neighboring cities. We'll be bringing that information back to you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you for your commitment to residents of the community and the service that you provide. Gary, thank you for coming out tonight. So anyway, The item before us is to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9184, which authorizes the issuance of $14.5 million in industrial revenue bonds for the Pioneer Ridge project. I would entertain a motion for adoption on first reading.
So moved.
A motion, there a second?
Second.
Motion made in the second to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9184, made by Vice Mayor Sedgwick, second by Commissioner Herbert. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Passes 4-1. Commissioner Boley in the negative. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is to consider adopting on first reading joint city ordinance number 9197, county resolution number we don't have, authorizing the increase of ambulance rates by 5% in January 2016, January of 2017, and January of 2018. Chief Bradford is here this evening.
Good evening. I think in the future, these types of meetings, I'll stop by and pick up some Versed and fentanyl before we come over. That will help go through the process, and that way you will forget parts of your evening. Also, welcome Kevin to our organization. Perhaps I should have her do this presentation, but a little bit of background in 1990. What?
That might be wise next time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'll remember what my evaluation said. So a little bit of background. In 1996, the county and the city entered into an agreement by which the city would provide ambulance services for all of Douglas County. As part of that agreement, the county and the city would create a joint resolution and ordinance that would set the ambulance fees that are used for patients that are transported or treated, and mileage that goes along with different classifications or types of incidents. That has been done over a number of years. There isn't a true history as far as a set time parameter on how often those are reviewed. It's something that's just done periodically. We have traditionally used the Mid-America Regional Council's study on ambulance fees across the Kansas City metro area to see where we relate in relationship to those communities. The county on Wednesday adopted a county resolution of 16-01, which they adopted these fees. What's before you is that the city then would adopt by city ordinance 9197 the same information. This gives us the authority then to bill and collect those fees and then pass the money back to the county.
And as we talked yesterday, all that money goes to the county?
Yes, sir, 100%.
The county does pay for 2 staff people that help.
Right, the county pays, correct, for 2 staff people that do the medical claims. They're city employees, but we bill them for their salaries and benefits. And then, of course, the county pays 25.64% of our operating budget minus fire capital. They pay 100% of the ambulance capital and receive 100% of the revenues.
Okay. And what is the age of that agreement again? What year?
1996.
Okay. Is it time we have a discussion about that agreement?
There has been some general thought along those lines, and we have visited, I have visited with the county administrator about that. We thought it would be good to have the new city manager on board when we launch those discussions.
Well, when it comes to the rates, I mean, you know, these need to be updated from time to time, and I see that the assignment, the Medicaid assignment is still being used pretty much as the standard there. But our costs, even, well, the reflection here, you know, we're still about midway, you know, price-wise with the other communities that we're being compared against, so.
Right, this will put us slightly below the median for that regional study.
Okay. It's good, we're not the highest. Okay. Questions? Questions? Kevin, did he forget anything? Oh, okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Good evening. My name is Katie Welsh. I just have a question for the chief. And this is just anecdotal, but my little sister incurred an ambulance fee in Topeka, and it took us years to pay it off. It was so high, there was no provision for people who are super low income. And I wondered if there is a provision in our county to write off, like our Lawrence Memorial will do, for people who are very low income. So I was hoping he could answer that. Thank you.
I'll get you an answer to that. Any other public comment? Chief?
Currently, we do allow for payments, and those payments are agreed upon between the individual and the department. We have a number of individuals that pay as much as $5 a month and have been paying for years. We find that the older population wants to pay off their debt. They will not take discounts, even though we've offered, or to eliminate their bill after it gets down to like 50%. So we continue to work with them. We have others that have submitted paperwork that indicates their inability to pay, and we use a very, I think, open judgment, and in those cases, we do look at waiving parts, if not all, of those bills.
Thank you very much. Okay. Back to the commission. Well, we've got an ambulance service, and we got to pay for it. So it's like code, right? Sorry, that's for you, Matt. If there's no other questions, the item before us is to adopt on first reading joint city ordinance number 9197, authorizing the increase of ambulance rates. It's a good deal, yeah. Motion made and second to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9197, made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Herbert. Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you all. Future agenda items. Diane.
Yes, so at next week's meeting, we have the Indian Hills traffic and traffic calming issue. I have a report to bring back to you and get some further direction. Notices have been sent to the neighborhood, so there will likely be a number of attendees for that meeting. The 800 New Hampshire right-of-way is something that we're working on. It will not be ready for this particular agenda. So this is the Pachamama's development, and we're still working with them on several issues, so that will likely be later in February. And then we have a review of the custodial contract. So there were some questions about this, earlier last year. It won't be ready yet? Okay. So that'll be, again, coming here in February. Sorry about that. And then we do have a number of developers who have approached the city regarding resolutions of support for affordable housing tax credit applications that they're submitting to the state. So this is not atypical. This time of year, it's very active in terms of getting these applications ready. So they're always due in early February. In many cases, these projects have a number of other development issues, sometimes even rezonings that are required. So it's, in a way, it's just the beginning phase because the developer, in most cases, can't proceed with the project unless they get tax credits from the state. So this is kind of an initial step, and sometimes we don't know a great deal about these projects, and there's a number of issues that need to be lined up. But I think we anticipate, well, at least one for sure, perhaps two of these projects that'll be coming forward to all of you. And And like I said, it usually tends to be very reactive here, and we don't get a whole lot of notice about what developers may have interest. Later on in the month, we have several items for you that some of which I've mentioned here, and we'll also be beginning to talk about the capital improvements program probably late in the month is what we're planning to do. We're working on some details with our software and sort of what our general timeline is, and I'll be giving you an update about that. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, Diane? Okay. Commission items.
I have several.
Okay.
First of all, I had Diane email all of you because in March, of course, we have the National League of Cities Conference, and Lisa and I will be at that, which is the first Tuesday in March. And our traditional day off is the spring break, because there's 5 Tuesdays in March. So if you want to change it instead so that we're off, or we can keep it at spring break, whatever you guys want to do, just keep it in mind. And then someone complained to me that at Rock Chalk Park, there was a roof leak. And so I was just curious if that building was still under warranty, if just someone could check that out and just let us know what's going on. I don't know the details of it, I'm sorry.
It's not under warranty. I haven't heard about a leak recently. We've had some leaks right after the building opened, but those were resolved, so I'm not aware of one, but I'll certainly check into it.
Yeah,
and let you know.
it was Leadership Lawrence Day, whatever day that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, the first week of February, the mental health court, perhaps kind of walkthrough exercise of what that would even look like. The county's going to be doing that. And Lisa is going to be able to go, and hopefully I'll be able to go. We should probably put on the calendar in case any other commissioners were interested in that. It seems to be kind of like an exercise, Tony.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Kind of a staging event.
are
just
taking
to
part in
show.
it, or,
I'm not participating, but I want to attend.
yeah. So we should
What
probably get
date
that on
is
the
it?
calendar.
What date is
I
it?
thought I had it down here.
Let me look at my email. I click on the email and it doesn't have all of the below stuff. It just has his last response.
Well, if you can find it, we can get it
Yeah,
added.
we need to dig that up.
We'll get it added to the.
hosting it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, was it February 3rd?
Yeah, it seemed like it was right the first. I thought I had it on my
Like at
calendar, but I
noon?
don't.
We'll double check, but I think that's what it was, February 3rd at noon. I think it was a Wednesday.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to get, if Casey could get the latest updates of the public transit amenities that they have planned for the spring. I'm sure that there's not a lot to be done over the winter, but I'm just curious what their plan is. Sorry I had so many. Thanks, guys.
You know, the question about the March 8th meeting, is it March 8th?
I think, is it, okay,
March 8th.
You
I
know,
should look on the calendar.
Yeah,
I have it right in
March
front of
8th.
us.
Do you guys have plans already for spring break?
Would need that.
We could just get together and figure out which issues we're going to disagree on,
That's
and make
right.
sure we put them on that week's agenda. Be all right.
Well,
Yeah, the 8th.
I would rather that we go ahead and meet on March 8th and take off the spring break week, you know.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Don't worry, we'll take care of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll have the here, come back on March 8th.
That's
Yeah,
right.
March 8th will be there.
I doubt it. Anyway, okay, any other commission items?
Yeah, real fast. I had the opportunity last week to attend the Pipeline Innovator of the Year Awards. Pipeline is an organization serving Midwest entrepreneurs. It's not just Lawrence, it's not just Kansas, it's quite a large circle. And in 2011, Lawrence resident Kyle Johnson was the Innovator of the Year. And I only bring it up because they announced the nominees for next year. One of which is BTBC's own Blake Hawley. So we have the opportunity to win 2 Innovator of the Year awards right here in Lawrence in a 5-year period, and that's
we go.
kind of neat.
That is
Nice.
cool.
We should put that on Twitter.
Very good.
Megan's still here.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, meeting calendar. I did tell Diane that, and she'll add to the calendar tomorrow, CAC meeting for 9th Street that's not on the calendar in case multiple people are there. So anyway, it's tomorrow night at 6:30 at the library. So anyway.
And Lisa just double-checked February 3rd at noon.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know where, but it's February 3rd at noon,
Okay. Well, just go somewhere. It'll be okay.
somewhere in Lawrence. Just drive around.
Okay. Any other calendar items? I noticed that you added the Cultural Arts Commission meet and greet.
So I understand that Porter O'Neill had been in contact with you about that possible date and time, so we just added that to your calendar there.
And this is not a formal deal. This is more like just.
That's what I understand.
Eat carrots and that stuff, so.
Carrots will be served.
Okay.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, I'm on. And let's see, it's not, no, I was going to say next Tuesday, but that's not February 9th. So anyway, okay. Well, sounds good. Any other calendar items anybody else need?
What's this Canagua University students? What is that?
We have
February
a
24th.
sister city university in Hrotzka.
Oh, okay.
So from time to time, yeah, come on down. From time to time, we get together.
Sorry. It looked like a Native American kind of name. I was curious.
It's not an official sister city event, but KU hosts a short-term class for some university students from Canagua University, which is, I believe, in the county or the province. I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't know the correct terminology, where our sister city is. And so KU contacted us and said, we'd really like to have a meet the mayor, get a tour of City Hall. They're going to be downtown. And so that's what that is. It's just a brief hello, meet and greet, kind of talk about the differences in government.
Cool.
We've done it a couple of times, and then we also had an event at KU a couple of years ago, and that was a big deal because we had some very high up people in the government there, so that was
Yes, but these are students from the university.
Mayor, while we are on the subject of sister cities and calendars, I would like to mention that the Sister Cities group is planning the 25th anniversary with Hrotzka. The delegation is coming to here from Hrotzka, and I understand that it'll be around October, but I know that the group was interested if there were any thoughts about any dates that they needed to avoid, or if you had any thoughts about that, but I did want to foreshadow that that delegation will be here in October.
What you doing in October?
Late night in the fog.
Oh, there we go.
We recommended that they take that.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
This is coming from a non-KU fan.
Okay. That's enough calendar. Anybody got anything else?
I just can't get enough.
Let's see.
To adjourn?
Not yet. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn, made by Commissioner Herbert, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah.
This turned out to be a long one.